That's the number that I had in my head.
That's when he graduated.
Did everybody?
Okay, that's what it is. I'm not heading
Hey, Claudia, can I ask you a question? You're on mute. Okay. Okay. I was going to ask, is this going to be the visual setup for the meeting? Because at the last one, we were able, like, I wasn't there in person, but we were able to see everyone at the table speaking, even if you weren't there in person.
No, Ryan is setting it up right now.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know because I've never done this like hybrid thing from home. So I didn't know what if that worked. Okay. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody in the
Oh,
room?
there they just appeared. Okay.
Recording in progress.
We don't have Zoom. We don't do anything.
Okay, we will be the audio for the Zoom. It will come through these microphones. So make sure that as we are talking to one of these microphones.
That would be a big help.
I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Despite my reputation, I am here to help.
There's one there. Okay, there's one there. One there. Yeah. All right, now, let's go to.
Hey, Linda, I'm still working to get you in. Okay, give me just a couple more minutes. Thanks. Bye.
There we go.
Claudia,
Hi, Mary.
hi. How you doing, Angela?
I am well. How are you?
On my screen, Claudia, you are appearing 3 times, so you have successfully managed to be beside yourself twice. It's very skilled.
So can you turn your sound, maybe, you know, yeah, we hear from there. Is that there?
Hello, everyone.
We're still getting 5 minutes. We're still getting it.
Yeah, maybe,
Now, maybe you should mute too, and then just talk to the microphone.
Yeah, everybody, you have to have your sound off. On your computer.
mute and sound.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds better, okay, fine.
So what do I do to do that? You did it because we don't hear you.
You're good. It's just for the people.
Oh,
You're not in Zoom, so it's only people that are Zoom. And have sound.
Okay, this is a board meeting, and by the way, there's some bagels here and some cream cheese and some cake. And so take that anytime you like. Those of you at home, I'm sorry, you'll have to take care of yourselves. Yeah, so Mary, you can hear us all right, and Angela? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so okay, we're going to start the meeting, and Alice Woody is here, and so she's going to talk with us about the minutes.
okay. So Ken asked me to let you all know where I am with producing the minutes. I'm fully aware, more than fully aware, that I am way behind in getting these things to you. I also need to tell you where I am health-wise very briefly. We don't need to make this too much about me, but yet, in my opinion, it is relevant for why you do not have the minutes in front of you. And that is, first of all, I did go see a neurologist. I was able to get some medication for the 2-month-long migraine that I was having. That medicine is still in my system. It is still working for the next 2 or 3 weeks at a lower rate than it was at first. But the upshot of all that was that I almost could not stand to even look at the computer. It was just too much. And then also I have a problem with hearing, which most of you who know me know, because I'm not shy about admitting it. And what you may not know, though, is how stressful it is when I can't hear what's going on. And of late, as much as everybody has tried to make this work with Zoom and having closed captions and transcripts and tapes available, it's really not working very well. It is just impossible sometimes to figure out what is going on. And not only can I not figure it out, but the transcript can't figure it out. And so we get somebody else, one person talking about one thing, another person talking about another thing. It's just as if it were all one sentence, and it is extremely stressful. So I've been thinking, what can I do? And I need to go through, we've tried several different things. I need to go through and see what might work best. Whatever we did last time when I wasn't here, I guess I was still in Turkey. It's been a horrid situation to try. It's stressful, it's frustrating, and I am only now beginning to get it teased out. I'd say that the minutes are about 3/4 done, maybe even more. But I can't tease out that last part yet. So I don't know. I'm just gonna have to keep at it. But because we are not in person, when I had been on Zoom because it had worked so well last year. I could see everybody, I could hear everybody. People weren't as prone to talking over each other because, that's a thing on Zoom, and I could lip read. And I could pretty much understand what was going on. I felt on an equal footing with everybody else in terms of understanding what was going on. But this latest thing where we have some people in person and some people on Zoom, and I understand the desire to be together. I mean, I do, trust me. I love being with people, but I decided that, you know, the best thing to do is for me to be at home and I can get all this stuff and do it over again. And anyway, it has been very difficult. So Mark and I are going to talk sometime soon and see if there are any other options. I decided to come today to see if it was better because than it had been recently over the past, over the Zoom process. So that's why I'm here today. And you all get to see my shining face, and I even had a couple of hugs, which is just great. So, but I want you all to understand that I am fully aware that you need to get them. I will get them done as soon as I can. I can't sit down and work on a 3-hour meeting all at once. That is just not working for me. So I have to split it up. As I told Ken, when I think doing the dishes is a good thing and a break and fun, you know, I was having a hard time. So that's where I am. And I just want you all to know that I'm aware, I'm working on it. I certainly hope to get them done. And what I proposed to Ken, and he didn't have any objections at the time, was that I complete the minutes, send them all out to you in an email. You can give me any changes. And, you know, there will be simply times when I say, please, somebody fill this in. I cannot understand what's going on. And then let me know that I'll send you any revisions, and then we can either approve that by email. I think that's one of the things that would be perfectly appropriate for board action to be via email. Or if somebody objects to that, then we can just wait, but you all will have them as I completed them, so you wouldn't be inundated with multiple pages of minutes at once. So that's what I had to say. Anybody have any questions or suggestions? Yeah.
Would it be feasible and easier to split the role between two individuals? For instance, if a meeting is an hour, Alice takes the first 30 minutes, the second person takes the last 30 minutes, it would be less work, or is that not?
I don't think so, because I sometimes move things around so that it makes sense. If somebody talks about something and then they say, oh, wait, you know, 15 minutes later, I wanted to go back to such and such. I just put that all together. So for ease of reading and understanding
That makes
what
sense.
the total decision was. Yeah.
I did that too. I organized it by subject rather than chronological.
Sure,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So, but you know,
I did convey in our talk that there was a very high standard set by Jeff Miller about the details required in the minute.
Yeah.
And so I think we can slack off on that. And that may be a help.
but then again, you know, that doesn't satisfy me, because I told you what my standard was, which was anybody who reads the minutes ought to be able to know the important parts of what happened at the meeting. I don't like minutes where I read them and say, we discussed such and such, and this was the decision. That tells me nothing, you know, or next to nothing.
Do you depend on complete sentences too?
Do I what?
Depend on complete sentences?
I try to.
I've come to love bullet points.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, now there may be times when I would think that a bullet point was appropriate. Yeah, there could be, yeah.
So any other comments about this? So the idea is that as they come out, I think starting with the last meeting, that
Yeah, the ones that's almost.
it's almost finished, that
Which will not be done today or tomorrow. I expect to be totally exhausted after our meeting today. Which means I will not go back and listen to the tapes today. And I've got a few things to do for Family Promise, but then I can hit it about probably Tuesday or Wednesday.
and then run through by email the revision cycle. And then we'll have a vote by email.
If that's okay with everybody.
And then as you complete others over time, we'll fill in the missing ones. Yeah, Wendy.
I was gonna say, when I was the secretary, I would not report what everybody said.
Right,
I would say we had a discussion and not just the conclusion, but we had the discussion and there were concerns about this and there was
this,
of this.
and that's why,
But I didn't say so-and-so said this, so-and-so said this. And I also did that partly for privacy, even though meetings are all public,
They're
but
open,
still, you know, maybe people don't want to be known who said what. So I guess I wanted, and I know that when Jeff did it, he would be much more detailed and say who said what. So I guess what is your preference, you know, for Allison's sake is to-
my general attitude toward that is that if it's general discussion or doing back and forth and all of that, that's fine, unless it is something where it's important that, for instance, if Chris says something about something that's in his particular purview, I'm gonna identify
yeah,
that.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, but no, I appreciate that point.
So,
It's also
and then
easier
you don't
to
have to
read.
know, and I was going by, I didn't have Zoom because we didn't have it in those days, way back when. But I did have a tape recording and I couldn't always tell from the tape recording who said it, but I didn't need to know.
I brought my, so I can take, if anything fell out, I would have this with battery power, so.
Any other questions? Okay,
Questions, points, things that bother you other than not having the minutes?
Thanks for sticking with it.
Yeah.
yeah. And,
Yeah, I don't usually abandon things.
No one thought you did.
okay, so, the agendas are long and, I would, eventually like to start the meeting with an opening, I don't know if I'll light candles or something like that. But just excuse me, maybe starting in January. We'll do that, because I do appreciate some of that, and wish we could do it. But here's my report, which is next on the agenda. And by the way, I can share the agenda if you'd like to see it as I go through it. So Barbara Lamb is here. And let's thank Barbara for organizing. I know she doesn't want that, but a wonderful potluck. And I've heard so many positive things at the time and since. And so that was really great for the church. And basically my report is bringing you up to date on some things that have progressed. We're still looking for a lot of volunteer positions to be filled. But we have a small group ministry steering committee, which is Ann Whitney, Jim Hartzell, and Jennifer Fowler. And so I've introduced the term steering committee in two places here, the forum steering committee as well, because the idea is to make it less intimidating to take a leadership role. You can feel that it's not just on you. That's the upside. The downside is you have to have somebody that calls a meeting. And so I think these two steering committees have started out well. And I think that will help to gather volunteers. And I
just lost my audio.
I'm going to say this out loud because I just heard Linda say it too. Those of us on Zoom have lost audio completely for the room.
working on it. Can you hear me? Oops.
We can, but you just echoed in and out and then went away.
Can you hear us now?
Say something else, please.
Something else, please.
There you go. Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
it's
here.
back and it sounds normal. Thank you.
Thank you. I was talking about Justice Knox, the House meetings. And Polly Murphy, Barbara Taylor, and I've lost it on my screen.
Ruth Horton.
Yeah, Ruth Horton. Board members are Gert Novinger and Judy Gibson. And so we've got a good team. If no one has asked you to go to the Nehemiah meeting, I want to put you on my list. We have to bring 3, that's April 25th. Place to be announced. And so watch for people to ask you to be at the Nehemiah meeting. Frony Ward has taken on usher coordinator. Yes.
What's Nehemiah?
Okay, Justice Knox works with community organizations, mostly congregations, coming together and deciding through a sort of a house meeting, filtering process and vote on what issues they want to concentrate on in the city, in the community. And then they have research teams that develop proposed solutions or routes to solutions. They get meetings with the officials, county and city government and the agencies, and they ask them for things. And the Nehemiah meeting, the intention is to have, hopefully this time, 1,500 people sitting in the audience. These are citizens who are asking those officials on stage to commit to doing some of the things and discuss continuing discussions with the research groups. And so they have some notable advances they've made. And the one thing that's remarkable is their persistence. It took them 4 years to get public housing through the way they thought it should be. And they're working on gun violence. The new one is homelessness, mental health, and yes, Alice.
Ken has told you how, how it works here and all over the US for the cities and groups that are part of the DART, D-A-R-T program, which is sort of a national guidance group. Nehemiah, the name comes from an Old Testament prophet who observed his Jews in an area being treated very, very poorly. And instead of just sitting back and taking it, and it had to do with money lenders and people having to sell their children into slavery. It was a horrible story. But he organized them to go and essentially, by the sheer numbers of people, force the people who had been essentially taking the farmlands, taking the children, enslaving people to stop and return everything to the people who needed it. So that's very inspiring for those of us who are particularly interested in seeing justice for people who don't have as much as the rest of us do.
And
That's
so
the best.
numbers
Perfect.
is the
It
thing.
is the numbers. It's that pressure of numbers.
And the Nehemiah meeting is what, an hour and a half? I think they
Oh,
keep it
Lord.
very tight.
They keep it tight and they keep it moving, but it still takes a while because of so many people. So-
Yeah, parking and so on, but
But it's okay. I mean, it's 2.5 hours total commitment at that time. And then there's some other meetings that they ask you to go to at different times that are much shorter.
okay, I was saying that Frony Ward is the usher coordinator. And so she and I are going to talk, but she has some ideas of moving. So for example, people might choose a month to usher. Or a couple might usher for a month, or they might choose a particular day of the, first Sunday or something. And so, excuse me, she's working on getting the ushering back up to speed. And then there's a forum steering committee. The forums, if you don't know about them, used to be in this room before the service pretty much every Sunday. And Sue Vaughn told me that at one point, we actually had 2 forums often going on before service, and those are going to be led by the steering committee, Lance McColl, John Mashburn, and Sue Vaughn. And so they'll be inviting people, sometimes from the church, sometimes from the community, sometimes from the university. So basically, Lance McColl is sort of a social justice warrior in the church. John Mashburn is a scientist and engineer. And Sue Vaughn is sort of, I felt, literary and that side of things. So, you know, one Sunday we might have a poet or an author, another Sunday, some researcher from the university, another Sunday, somebody who's telling us about Justice Knox. So they're going to start, I think, just talking to John, they're sort of targeting January as a start and a couple of months. And it will take a while for people to get back in the groove. But a new advantage is having a Zoom component to it. They'll start, we think, at 9:30 to 10:30 instead of bumping right up against the service. And we'll have these recordings so people can join on Zoom or look at the Zoom later. And also an in-person component. Yes.
I'm
Alex.
glad that we will have the opportunity to attend the forums via Zoom later, because there are other things that are actually going on before church. I think there's a small group that meets, and also personal beliefs and commitments meets. And of course, the ideal thing in life is to be able to be everywhere at once, right?
Well, John, I think, said 2 Sundays a month because he's in one of them. He doesn't want it to conflict with it. Okay, I am not going to go into the executive report written by, oh
Can I
yeah,
ask a quick question? Because you mentioned a couple of terms that I haven't heard a whole lot, but like the usher coordinator and the steering committee, the steering committees that we're launching, are we also putting in initiatives to keep those things going? Because I think one of the things that we're figuring out now is that people were doing things. We didn't really document the process, like how ushers are being scheduled and such. So like, as we're spinning up these steering committees, will they be creating a process or a charter, or will there be some like reporting to the program council so that, you know, when the next generation of members needs to take over this, they're gonna have that?
maybe I'll wait and ask them to do that.
Okay. You know, I think a lot of the challenges we're having now are because we didn't do that in the past.
Yeah.
And so I think one
Or
thing,
we can't find it.
or we can't find it. And so I think, you know, as we are relaunching parts of the church and as we are spinning up new things, I think we should learn that lesson.
There actually is an usher handbook. It's a little out of date.
I got a 5-minute blast from Ted Jones this morning. Do this. I would have loved to have seen the handbook.
That handbook would not, Brian, let me tell you that Bill Cherry did it probably about 15 years ago. So
Okay.
I don't know if anything's changed. We still got the money.
Lots of.
Well, the
But I
recruiting.
think Crony will help, yeah, with putting all that together. Yeah.
Do all of these come under the program council? All of these
No.
new things, they don't. I thought maybe
No,
that seemed like a possible
Here
place
is
to
the acting
store the.
program council chair.
And that's why I'm asking now, yeah.
So ushers is under the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
I
is,
think are they like a component of worship?
yes,
Yeah.
they're in a cluster.
They're in a cluster with
Yeah.
a welcome table, greeters.
Lots of other things too, but they are listed that way, and they do have a contact person, so I would not be using the word steering committee. I would just put contact and then the 3 people's names, unless somebody says, oh, we have a new term, and in which case, if we have a new term of steering committee that's going to be printed, it needs to be in the front of the book, because Claudia and I decided to put the terms
Team,
committee, group, and program. We put all those in the front of the program council guide on purpose as an educational tool, and lo and behold, many people, it has helped them figure out, oh, this is how this works. We didn't understand that's what it is. So if you're going to introduce steering committee and it's going to be in that book, then we need a definition of it too.
Okay, I think for now, contact with 3 names is great.
Okay. So steering committee apparently is kind of right in here, right?
Well, it's for
Or for them.
talking with them.
Okay, okay.
It's a way of softening the ask.
Yes.
But I'm wondering if the program council would be a place that might take charge of these handbooks that would be put together, that Ryan was suggesting.
Well, if it's handbooks for church kind of stuff, that would be the first right there,
Yeah.
I would think. Sorry, Gordon.
Any other comments,
We
or,
probably all could have used a board handbook. Or-
Linda's got her hand up.
Hey,
oh, Linda, yes.
Hi. At one time, we were doing exactly what Ryan suggested. If it wasn't a formal committee that required a charter, but a group like even a coffee hour, put together a handbook so that someone new coming in would know how to do it. And I guess a problem is losing it. So if council were to take control of making sure those are posted somewhere for small group ministry, I did the handbook a long time ago and I found it and gave it to Judy Gibson, small group ministry steering committee. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the Usher handbook, for example, is in our governance documents on the web, I think.
Yeah, they're supposed to be online. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're supposed to be there. Yes. So that's where they should be. Yeah.
It would be good to know that. I have guidelines for the caring table, but I haven't given it to anybody because nobody asked me for it. I mean, except the people that do the jobs.
yeah.
but there's not a charter for caring table, right?
No, I don't think we don't want to be that formal, but it would be useful to have that guideline put in a
Absolutely.
place that doesn't get lost. Yeah.
Microsoft Teams. Microsoft.
That's what I'm
Teams.
really glad that AB is.
Yeah,
listening to this
AB,
discussion.
yeah.
Maybe AB should do it.
Yeah.
No problem.
He's-
But it needs to all filter. It needs to, everything that goes on within the church needs to follow the same
Hmm.
path to getting out to whomever may need it. So,
Here, here.
I mean, it, you know, that was a prime example. There was a disconnect, you know, so there needs to be a flow, you know, wherever the idea is generated, it needs to go on to the next person to put it in print and charter, no charter, Microsoft Teams.
They call that a process.
Process, right? Systems, processes, yeah.
In the business,
Part
it's
of
called
the business. We are the business, you know, we need to act as such.
Also, once everything's developed within Realm,
Mhm.
Realm has a resources tab. So that would be a good place. A lot of groups do have their things like that, whether it is their handbook
Mhm.
or perhaps their agendas, things like that, that they keep in those resources so people can go back through and check those.
I did that one time, a long time ago. Totally forgot about it. Oh, yeah, it's there. That would be
A
easy.
lot of stuff in Redmond's been so forgotten about.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, any other questions on that? The executive report was circulated, I believe, and I'm impressed with Chris's work. He has a column in the newspaper today, which is very interesting. And so I recommend you read that. And I don't know that this is circulated very far, the types of achievements. So his various roles outside of our Sunday services are not appreciated. And I think Chris himself is a little hesitant to put himself out there. And so maybe if we have an idea of how to circulate that information a little further.
Can we have a link on the newsletter?
There is, in Chris's comment section of the newsletter, he usually puts something down at the bottom about his blog. And sometimes he will say, there is an article in the Knoxville News Sentinel. So he doesn't do it all the time, but he does always put a link to his blog, which the blog tells what articles he's written.
I've never been to the blog. I should try it out.
It's mostly sermons. Like 90% of it is.
Mhm.
But I do like reading.
Okay, and Bill, I don't know if Bill is online.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm sorry, Bill, before that, Mary had her hand up. Mary?
I just was appreciating the fact that you'd started up the splinters from the board, Ken, and it seems like, and I'm should be volunteering to write something, although I wanted to make sure I don't volunteer to do anything I can't get done. But I think that would be one way to get some kudos to Chris, to Barbara Lamb, to the volunteers, by just including some of that information on a little bit of a regular basis. I know it's in there in different ways, but coming from someone other than the individual who's doing it might be another way to hold people up.
Yes, thank you. Now that you brought that up, thank you very much. It's not on the agenda, but Splinters from the Board is a name I stole from a previous generation that had things, and it wasn't my intention to do it every time. So it would be good to circulate that, get different views, or cooperate, people could cooperate but that's an excellent idea, because it isn't a thorough going over of everything. It's choosing something and highlighting it, and highlighting the volunteers and the successes of things that have formed community is a good way to encourage people to volunteer when they have the chance. And so thanks for volunteering, Mary. We can talk about it.
I will give you several deadlines as to when I get stuff done.
Okay. So Bill, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No problem at all. With regarding a treasurer's report, as you all recall, we're only going to be giving detailed treasury reports quarterly. But I have looked at the performance to date, and we are almost $50,000 under budget year to date through October. That's about $28,000 in increased revenue over budget, with most of that being pledge contributions. And then we're operating at about $22,000 under budget. And I think the pledge contributions and the spending variances are pretty much all time related. So I expect these numbers to be more adjusted towards the budget as we go into the year. And there's really nothing outstanding to report otherwise with regards to the budget.
Can I ask you what under budget means? Are we talking about revenue or expenses?
Under budget, it's a favorable variance. We have either spent less or earned more. That's led to a positive variance against the budget.
Okay, so that's good news.
That's good news, yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily meaningful because of where we are in the year, but it's still better than being in the opposite direction.
Yes, very good. Any questions for Bill? Glad you're back healthy, Bill. Take care of yourself.
Well, I'm not quite there yet. That's why I'm here online and not with you personally. But thanks.
Okay, Bebby, are you here?
Yes, I'm on Zoom.
Oh.
Yeah, I just got rid of a house full of family guests for the weekend, and my husband's not feeling well and flu is going around. So I thought, it's best not to be around a bunch of people right now. So I am doing you from my couch or my chair. So I was with the worship committee just a few weeks ago. and we have got guest speakers through the end of February. So we're starting to look at speakers for March. And there's going to be no service on Christmas Day because of the Christmas Eve service. I think they're looking at maybe doing 2. They're not really sure yet if they're going to do 2 or not. And then I think Barbara Taylor is going to do the Sunday, January 1st service. And it's going to be about how we work to make the holidays and the new year better for us and things like that. And Mark Mahundra was maybe looking at doing something else, some sort of other activity on New Year's Day as well as of this service. And that's pretty much all that we got through at the last meeting. And the music, I have not met with Barbara at the music committee. She is still looking for youth to put in the committee. And so she's reaching out for that. So that's all I know about the music committee, is that we're still wanting to have a more youthful presence in that to bring people into the church. Alice.
Debbie, is Chris going to be able to do a service on January 22nd for reproductive justice?
I don't know. That seems like it might be one of his dates that he's switching with another pastor, but I'm not sure.
Well, what I understood from my latest pass at the tape was that they needed to work with him to be sure that he could do that, and Mark didn't have a final answer.
Well, we talked, he and I talked at our
Okay.
8th principal meeting and mentioned, and Chris mentioned something about maybe doing a service for Chinese New Year, which is January 22nd, and Mark voiced up, said you can't have that date.
Yeah, okay. Well, in part, Mark was interested in what would have been the 50th anniversary.
Yeah,
road.
yeah, yes, that's why I wanted that
Yeah.
date.
Okay, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a
Right.
question for, and maybe the worship committee can't answer this, but I don't know if anybody can. I think we a few months ago had approved an endowment project around expenses to reorient the sanctuary for worship. I was wondering if anybody had an update on that, when we expected to have that happen.
I'm hoping by Christmas Eve, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
We're still dealing with installation issues. Or installation scheduling, I should say, not necessarily issues.
So hoping by Christmas Eve, so I mean, could we probably expect by the end of January then at worst case?
I would think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Was that to turn the sanctuary
Yeah.
around?
Yeah.
Like it was?
Yeah, I mean, somebody asks that question every single week.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys hear it too.
Yeah, at least once a week.
Okay, so we could say that it's being worked on a couple months at the worst case. I think it's probably a good answer.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I know this is impossible to do. It would just be way too much money, but I wish they could also move the organ to the front instead of having it in the back. I know we can't do that, but. Yeah.
That'd be beautiful, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it be gorgeous? I mean, that's one thing I did appreciate about,
Yes.
well, that's one of the unanticipated benefits
Mhm,
of
mhm.
moving the.
I would like the opening of the reoriented to be a key event.
Mhm.
It should be an event, I think, somewhat like the potluck, getting back. And so I hope we can make that an event somehow, which may be a little hard. So one of the issues, as I understand it, is the backlighting. And then, do they have the new camera? I think they
We don't
ordered.
have the new camera yet, but we will have the new camera soon. Yes.
Yeah.
And then we will have to reorient another camera.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Medi?
Well, I got a question and I don't know, maybe Claudia can answer. We used to have a children's choir. Are we gonna have another children's choir?
Ann was,
And Barbara, yeah.
and Barbara read. Yeah.
We in charge.
Do we, I mean, I always thought it was great when the kids came out and sang on there. I don't know, is there any plans to have one? I'm kind of curious about that.
Question for
I think that's a question that as we move forward, personnel is meeting in the next couple of weeks. And they're gonna finalize what we're doing with our music director, music program assistant, things like that. And deciding who's doing what kind of job duties, whether they're paid, whether they're volunteer. So I think once we get a little bit of that sorted out, then we'll be able to figure out who might be taking on a children or a youth choir or something like that.
I don't want to speak for Catherine, but you know, when I ask her questions about religious exploration, you know, a lot of her answers are, you know, at this point, we're just trying to rebuild community. So I don't know that there are enough kids at the age to even do that. I think right now it's just trying to get younger people, families into the building.
Yeah, because I think Chris's article that he sent us mentioned about RE being hit hard around the country.
Yep.
At UUAs.
Yeah, I always thought that was sort of part of the RE program, that choir.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed when they came out.
Okay, any other questions on music or worship? Okay, thank you, Mebby. Next, in old business. And so Patsy Farmer is here. Patsy, if you'd like to move the chair up here, or here's a microphone right here.
And yeah, you can move that closer.
I have some copies here, but I am going to kind of go through it quickly. The 8th Principal Task Force is made up of Eddie and Eleanor Williams, Chloe Aroli Waters, Soraya Cooper, Mark Mahindra, and me. And we just wanted to give you all an update on what has happened since we passed the 8th Principal in June of 2021. So what we've accomplished over that time is facilitating several services. Most recent one was the Diwali service, reimagining Thanksgiving last year, centering the experiences of Asian and Pacific Islanders, and then ableism relatively recently. We've had book discussions on the 2019-20 UUA Common Read Breathe, a letter to my sons with the monastery. That was an excellent book, by the way, and great discussions. Several members of our task force and then a few other people in the congregation have taken Beloved Conversations. That's a program, I guess, does everybody know what that is? Okay, it is excellent, by the way, excellent.
Mark's talked to us a lot about it. And
Okay.
given the board a pretty thorough overview of it.
Okay,
Yeah. Do we have copies of that in the library? I know Mark gave several of his copies, but do we have it in the
are you
library?
talking about the?
I think-
Yeah,
Okay, I had switched to Beloved Conversations, sorry. Breathe, it probably, I bought my own, so I'm sure there are though. May even be in the children's library. I will say, this is a digression, but there are excellent adult books in the CDJO. I urge you to take advantage of some of those. All right, the Beloved Conversations, several of our committee, our task force members have been, and a few other people. It is an excellent offering also. It is offered by the FOS Collaborative from our UU Meadville Lombard Theological School, open to everybody. We start healing the impact of racism on our lives. It is very enlightening. It's discomforting at times, but well worth the time. And you don't have to do everything. You can devote whatever time you need to it, or you have to. Currently, we are working with Reverend Duncan Teague to prepare for a workshop and a service he's doing on the 25th and 26th of February. So he will be telling us about his work, starting the new congregation in Atlanta. And then he'll also be looking at what's going on with the Article 2 changes to the UUA bylaws and that sort of thing. We are doing more of the book discussions. We're a little behind, but we will be looking at Defund Fear, Safety Without Policing, Prisons and Punishment as another common read. And then the new one is Mistakes and Miracles, Congregations on the Road to Multiculturalism, which I'm very much looking forward to because that feeds into our 8th principle work, I'm sure.
So are these, excuse me, are these meetings then that, a sequence of meetings about these books?
Typically, we've had 2 to 3, I believe, meetings per book. So you read some and then meet and read some, and it's pretty forgiving if you end up not having time to read. Still beneficial. And we are continuing a conversation addressing ableism and disability justice. The UUA is committed to working on that. And there's a link we can send to you if you are interested. Or we might just send it to you to talk with Mark when I made that change. But anyway, that's a very growing, very important, in my opinion, group that we need to work on with the 8th principle being more welcoming. Continuing beloved conversations, we invite and encourage each of you to take that. Like I said, it's excellent. We need more people to take it to get to the point where we can have the next version, which is congregational level.
Can you tell us what the commitment is on that, Patsy? And what that involves in being a part of that?
It is, I believe it is 6 lessons. And they are hybrid of they're multi-platform. They, you know, videos, music, poetry, classes. There are 3 Zoom service-like meetings for the whole group. And then you will have a small group that you meet with every time a lesson drops. So 6 times over, I think it's every other week. So 6 times over about 12 weeks. And the small group meetings are about an hour and a half. And they are just processing the information that you were able to get to. There's just more information than anybody would probably ever get for all of it.
And how would we sign up for those?
There will be something coming out in the newsletter and probably through the Facebook, and in the past it's been through Facebook and email, I believe.
Okay.
Mark always sends those out.
Okay.
And do we still have development funds for anybody who wants to take it but can't necessarily afford it?
They offer scholarships.
Yeah, okay.
They will,
okay.
if you need it, they will make
Yeah.
sure you get there. They have
Okay.
lots of funding.
Yeah, because I
So
know
I
Glory
forgot.
took it for free. I mean, they give her a full scholarship.
Okay.
And also, I appreciate the fact that if you are able to, you can give some reparations. They have, like, you can pay $50 more for somebody else going, and then there's there are 2 ways. And so if those of us that can afford that I appreciated that being there also.
It's nice.
We are planning, we're in the kind of early stages of planning a trip to Montgomery and Birmingham. We visit the civil rights museums and memorials. And that's open to that's not for the committee, it's for anybody who wants to join us. And I understand there was one a few years ago that was very, very well received before I was here. We want to revisit with the committees that drafted statements on how they would live into the 8th principle. Get an update on what their progress has been like, see if there are ways that, they're stuck and we can help and that kind of thing. And what progress, and then encouraging those groups who have not made a statement, trying to figure out how to implement that, to do that. And finally, we are working on adding new members to the task force, of course, to help with the work, but more importantly, to bring a more diverse perspective to our work. So we have a pretty diverse group, but it's not as diverse as it needs to be.
Yeah, I think Matthew's gonna join us in January. And we're gonna change the right now we're meeting like at 1:30 in the afternoon, but we're gonna find some night, some more people can go to it
Right.
on there.
So bottom line, we feel like a lot of progress has been made. We have worked really hard and have had some good feedback on what we've done. But there's still much to do to live into that principle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As far as someone else joining, where would we find a kind of a bullet point of who would be the perfect person to join? Not necessarily for you to state it now, but do you have this, and this, and this? And would you what I mean? Kind of a synopsis of what would be most beneficial, what type of person or personality or
Yeah, I don't know. We can look into
background.
that. Certainly, if you have an intense interest, that qualifies you.
Sure.
Sure.
Yes, yeah.
But, we have age, we have women, we
Mhm.
have
Diversity.
people of color, we have, some,
Mhm.
but the more, and even more people in those categories, because we all bring different perspectives
Mhm.
from our own background.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure there is a perfect.
Yeah.
person,
Sure,
to
that's
be
fair.
honest
No,
with
that's
you.
fair.
Uh,
How many people are currently in the group about? Oh, just.
And there's,
Oh, here it
Yeah,
is.
so Laura, Swaya, Stephen.
Oh, okay,
And I will tell you,
Mark's the chair.
Mark does
okay.
a lot of work on this and everything else.
Mhm.
All right, questions?
Questions?
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had one, Jametta was our co-chair.
Right.
Okay.
Mary?
I'm guessing that's another committee that having a broader age diversity would be useful.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent point. Yes.
Yeah.
May I say that I thought the service of the principal last week was really excellent.
Thank you.
And I think this year is sort of dedicated to the 8th principle in terms of action. And one of the topics we're going to be hitting later is about involving the remote people who may never come to church but are following us. And I wondered, is your work going to be multi-platform at some point? Do you have Zoom meetings or do you have?
Right now, they're all Zoom,
Yeah.
which works really well for me personally.
Yeah, for many things, that really makes it open to a lot more people.
Yeah, Seema's usually in her car. Some parking lot.
This is a digression, but to your point, Alex, it does make us more structured. Then it keeps us more structured while still building. I'll tell you, my little group and beloved conversations from spring of 2021, we still meet every month because we became so close. That we still meet every month. So,
Well, thank you very much, Patsy.
Thank
And
you so
thanks to the
much.
committee.
thank you.
And convey our support.
Oh,
I do want to bring up one point on there, and it's just kind of looking at it, it's a, there's so much happened in our lives in the last 5 years, that everything's changed so much. And I look at the adopting the eighth principle, and I look at, does our mission statement coincide of what we're trying to do in this church now, as opposed to when it was last changed, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years ago on there. And also, does our congregational covenant, what we promise each other, does that lead us to the right track to get our mission accomplished? And never gets accomplished. We keep on working at it on there. I'm, you know, I feel bad, but I swear, I don't think I've looked at the congregation covenant in 10 years until a couple weeks ago on there. So, you know, we don't know what we promise each other, how we're going to do on there. So, I mean, that's one thing I'd like, if you haven't, read it sometime on there. But, you know, I don't know how often they change missions and covenants. And in fact, I asked Chris, trying to find a vision statement. We don't have a vision statement. He couldn't find one.
Well, that may come up at this very meeting.
We have the candidates, right? Don't forget the candidates.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, there are a lot of changes in this world, and you know, I guess we have to change with it.
I suppose this is stating the obvious, but I was on a principal task force in the beginning, and one thing that Mark in particular said repeatedly was that the purpose of the task force was not just to get the eighth principle explained to and embraced by the congregation, but also to actually live it. And that's where, you know, it would really be more finely tuned. It wouldn't be as easy to evaluate how well we were doing, but I have been so happy to see that it's still going strong. It's still expanding the definition, because I always felt that the language, even though it was initially pushed, I suppose one would say, by African-American members at the General Assembly and UUA in general. But, you know, it said, what is the exact language? And other, not disabilities.
Other
but-
forms of oppression,
Questions, yeah.
Say that again.
other forms of oppression.
Oppression, that's it. And there are all kinds of oppression.
Yes.
And I'm glad to see that the eighth principle task force has embraced the broader definition.
Yeah.
Of what the eighth principle is trying to
Yeah,
do.
it's not only, you know, because everything we see printed is, it's usually a beloved community. And this one, it says a diverse, multicultural.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not to say anything bad about beloved communities work or anything of that nature.
A true beloved community would involve all of.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
All right.
Thank you very much again.
Thanks, Matt.
The next item is one that is going to take, I don't know, a doodle poll or something, but the,
Anne,
I'm sorry.
excuse me, I just wanted to, I've been getting some exercise waving my hand. But I just wanted to really emphasize appreciating what Eddie and Alice and Patsy have been raising, and that in the context also of one of the first points that Chris made in his report about reframing where we are and who we are. Those pieces all fits together so well in my head. And that idea of where we are headed now, how are we, and using the words we, which I usually hear people say instead of removing things to the they position of what's happening with new people, what are they doing? And I just think all those people's pieces fit together so well in saying, what is our new normal and how are we excited and appreciating about that? There's so much good stuff happening. So I just wanted to emphasize that and thank you all who have just talked about that, because that gets me re-energized. That's all.
Sorry, I don't watch the screen enough to catch it.
No worries. I'll find ways to make myself known, I promise.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, the next item is about the reproductive task force's risk assessment. And they originally mentioned a couple 90-minute sessions, but they're really planning one 90-minute session. And the idea is to roll this out, and I believe the starting date is going to be that January 22nd. And so they would like, and I would like the board to be the guinea pig on this. That is to have one of these sessions where they discuss the situation with regard to actions on the Roe v. Wade front. And so I think I'll have to do a doodle poll again. That was a hot mess last time. So if anybody has an idea, we have other scheduling things. So I think it's maybe going to be a Zoom meeting. I've heard a lot about Zoom and their advantages. And so we'll talk with them and see if that's suitable, but that's much easier to schedule. And so I just want to give you a heads up that we'll try to schedule that sometime in, I don't know, it's becoming a busy season, but we want to get it out of the way so that they're ready for a January kickoff to other members of the congregation.
Because I think they have to get permits, right?
Yeah, I think that's being handled by the executives. And Claudia has, she back there. Yeah. So
Smart girl.
So I got a note from Chris about the permits and the parking, you know, permission to park in the lot and so on. And he felt that that was a normal, should be put in the category of a normal rental request. And so I think that's being handled. And so I think this is more about informing a congregation and find about the potential risks and finding out people's response to that. If anybody has more on that, let me know, because I'm not an expert on what they're planning to do, but
I would like, I think before they do that, I think the board should get an update on that with detail. I mean, that to me does not strike as a normal rental request.
Yeah, I view it in part as a shielding the congregation. Someone asks to rent space. and
Downplaying it.
We rent space.
So I think that might be fair for conversation with the congregation, but I think that's something that we should all kind of be in agreement on. I mean, I think the board probably ought to have a little bit more detail than the rest of the congregation there.
Yeah.
But to me, that doesn't strike me as just a normal run of the mill rental request. Now, I fully support it and I don't want it to be construed that I might not be supportive of it. I just want to understand it.
Yeah, so let's put that on the agenda for next time when Chris is here. Yeah, so Claudia, are you coming back in?
I am.
We have a.
Lock the door.
So Chris circulated a message about the rental and permit arrangements with the Planned Parenthood van.
Yes,
And as I recall, the sentiment was that this would be considered in the sense of a normal rental request so that things could go forward.
correct.
And has that gone forward and is permitting going forward? Or is the permitting a separate issue?
The permitting, I'm not
I
understanding.
understand that they needed a permit.
I have not heard anything about that.
Okay.
That may be something within Planned Parenthood itself for their vehicle. But we don't need any sort of permit for them to be on our property.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what permit Mark was talking about then.
But I think,
Mark is here. Would
Oh.
you like me to
Yeah.
ask him
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
He's out in the
I
hallway.
think maybe the more effective thing is to ask just for kind of a report on, what is involved in that process, what any potential risks are. And how this is weighed. I mean, I don't think we need to get into the details necessarily today. But, and it's being handled by the executive team appropriately, but I think the board probably should have a little bit more information around that, because in reality, it's not exactly a standard rental request.
What I understand is that Planned Parenthood has outfitted a mobile van trailer, so to speak. I have actually seen it because they drove it into the parking lot last week, just to make sure that the space would fit. It does not have any logos, signage, anything like that on it. It will only be in our building, or rather only in our lower parking lot, Monday through Friday.
Overnight?
If it is here overnight, they have a security person that will be stationed outside of it, and from what I understand, a vehicle. So watching it, so it will actually make our property even safer, because I doubt that few people will come into the lower parking lot because of that.
That wasn't my understanding
Oh,
from
okay.
the last board meeting, which I've gone through that for. And my understanding was that there wouldn't not be anybody there overnight, so we need to clarify that. It may have changed.
Okay, that was what I heard from Mark.
Yeah,
No one.
well,
from-
and
No
I
one
may
from
not
Planned
agree with
Parenthood
that.
has filled out a facility ground use form at this point, because from what I'm understanding, this may not happen until the first of the year.
and would they be basically providing the services that they would have provided at their real estate, real property clinics?
My understanding is it would be limited services, because this is a much smaller footprint.
do you want to get Mark in to ask him, or?
You just
Yeah,
went
I'd
down the
love to
hall.
see that.
Okay, go get
Would
him.
that help? I can.
I'll go get him.
He's right there. He's coming this way. Wave to them.
Don't all wave at him, he's gonna turn around and run.
Questions are coming up. Except you. It's about the,
I don't have a.
You don't-
I went to the calendar, there's no link on
Hey, Mark.
Hey.
Thanks for passing by.
No, I'm here.
Or we gotta find you a mic.
You weren't doing anything, were you?
Oh, I was doing it. For those of you not in the room, Mark is here. You cannot see him on camera.
So what can I answer for you? So we're talking right now about the trailer and and Chris has circulated a thing saying that they were going to consider it in the normal process of a rental. But you had brought up before something about permits. And then there's a further question about whether it will stay overnight, because the understanding before was that it would.
No, it will not stay overnight. It is going to be staying in Andersonville. That's the only place we found that was actually deal with Planned Parenthood and that had what we were looking for. We are looking at it as a rental. It will be using the bottom space. And what was the other question you had for?
About permitting? You
Permit-
mentioned
we don't have to do anything about that. What they would do, they basically, and now we were looking at the bottom parking lot. They basically just submit it to the city government, take a few weeks, but they will handle all of that. It's nothing that we have to do. I can send you pictures of it now. I meant to do that before I got here. Just lots going on, but they were here in our parking lot. What was it, Tuesday? And I guess I had visions that it was like the size of an 18-wheeler, but it's just basically like an RV camper. And just to catch y'all up to date, well, I'm sure you don't know this. So they were supposed to have an open house this next week for their donors over Cherry Street. Some of you got the email. That needed to have some more work done on it. So it's back in Greensboro, and we're looking at bringing it back here December 16th, 18th, somewhere. And I'm going to talk with Claudia and Chris. There's some talk that they may want to use the building for an open house and have it parked out front and people can go take a tour. It's actually kind of neat. It's got 2 exam rooms and like the sides come out, and but it's nice. And so what else can I answer for you about it?
When they apply for this permit, do they put on the permit where it will be?
Mhm.
So that if they're saying it's going to be here, the assumption is that we have approved that. I guess that was some of the confusions,
What that we
So-
the
that we have approved them being here, because I think there was a question here as to whether the board should be involved in making that decision. I guess.
Well, Chris was talking with, I mean, the way he was looking at it is that it's a rental.
It's a regular rental, so I guess
And I think that's okay. I think Chris can approve that, but I do think the board should be informed kind of all the details. A lot of the ones you just gave are kind of the questions that I had in my mind.
Yep. No, I think the board definitely should be involved, but the way that they're looking at, Chris is looking at it is that it's a
Yeah,
rental.
and I think that's appropriate. Again, I think the board probably needs a little bit more detail than just saying, oh, it's a standard rental, and you provided some of that.
Oh, yeah, no, it's but it'll be sharing space between here and Church of the Savior. And not be here overnight, I mean, because this is not going to be a secure area.
Right.
So
So did they have to do another permit at Church of the Savior?
they
as
will
well?
be doing another
Okay.
permanent Church of the Savior. So it'll be going back and forth between us. And I don't know how long it will be at each place, but they're going to be seeing 15 to 18 patients a day. It would be down there. It doesn't say Planned Parenthood on it. It's the colors are Planned Parenthood's pink and blue. But there is an awning that comes out when they set up. So in case it's raining, that does say Planned Parenthood, Tennessee and Northern Mississippi. Got the phone number, got the Facebook, Instagram, and all that information on it. And I will forward you the pictures that I took on Tuesday so you can see and have an idea. But yeah, it's just, I was talking to a couple other people, so I was like, I almost thought it was much, much larger than it is, but it's basically just your regular RV camp. Yeah.
And what types of services will they be providing to the population?
Well woman screenings, STD screenings, pap smears, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably pregnancy testing. So
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I think next meeting is probably a key time for the update on the whole thing, because January is going to be the sort of kickoff.
mhm.
And so can we put you on the agenda for this? Because I have some other questions. We're talking about scheduling the
Risk assessment.
the risk assessment discussion in preparation for using that more broadly in the church. But also the church may be involved, for example, in fundraising for people to get transportation elsewhere,
Mhm.
other things like that. And
Mhm.
I would like to have the complete picture.
Yeah.
Yep.
If we could next time. And we should schedule our risk assessment before that, I think.
Well, this is, and I'll have to get the exact timetable. I think it may have moved up as far as when they're going to need to be here because it does not fit on Cherry Street. So I will get that more details about that, because originally we thought it would be January-ish. As far as other action, direct action, as far as raising money, whether it be for a local abortion fund, Mountain Access Brigade, it's stuff like that. That is going to be separate from Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is not going to be doing any of that stuff. That and the congregation does need to think about this. It's like how they want to be involved. Do they just want to do fundraisers, take up a collection from time to time? One of the things, and this is what I'm doing, and I will be talking, this is one part of my agenda that I wanted to talk with you about. I just went through a training with Access Reproductive Care Southeast. It's a regional abortion access reproductive care. They are doing, I just went through this training, they are asking for people to have Plan B, emergency contraception, like have packets of them, and if there's somebody in the area that needs that, they call a number and then I meet them or drop them off or wherever they need it to be. They are also looking for outposts, places where a woman or a trans woman could come in and just get it and go. I'm going to be having that discussion with them on Tuesday because they may have some, and I think I'm of two minds about this. They may think people will be hesitant to come into a church just because they may have either had a negative experience. They may think that all churches are against abortion care. And on the other side of it, if we did choose to do that, that I think it is important for people of faith and houses of faith to be on the side supporting comprehensive healthcare and all healthcare. And so in that, and just for those of you who may not know, Plan B, it is not an abortifacient, it just prevents ovulation. So
And it's over the counter, correct?
yes,
Yeah, it's over the counter.
and it's one of the, oh, sorry, else go on.
Oh, I was just wanting you to reassure me that someone in Planned Parenthood is responsible for legislative monitoring. So I assume there is, but I just want to be sure that someone's keeping their eye on what our legislature is doing or
So-
trying to do, but I will be good.
Are you asking because to make sure that we stay within the law, or are you just saying in
I am
general?
asking because I want our congregation to be able to fully understand any risk they are taking. Yeah, this isn't really vis-a-vis the ban. This is any other work as assisting people.
Yeah, no, well, Planned Parenthood, there's several organizations that are going to be monitoring it. And I think I've talked about this with y'all, but just in case I didn't, there's a clergy coalition that I've been working with since I guess about this time last year, that we are working and having a united front, and we are keeping up with it. We will probably have to retain the services of a lawyer at some point, but it's Church of the Savior, Messiah Lutheran, and others. I mean, of course, the usual suspects. I mean, the only Unitarian church that is currently not doing anything is Oak Ridge, and I'll be meeting with their minister right after Thanksgiving to get them involved. But yes, we are monitoring that
Yeah, I
closely.
just want to be sure that we're up to date and we know what we are doing.
Oh, yeah.
Not trying to discourage us from doing anything, but I think people ought to be able to make an informed decision.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what this risk assessment that, I mean, first going to the board, but no, these are conversations the church as a whole needs to decide. I mean, I know what my risk level is, and that may not necessarily be the church's. So yeah, no, I want this church to know fully what sort of,
Yeah.
no, I'm just
We're on the
reiterating.
same page.
Yes, we are on the same page. So where are we at?
The risk assessment, the seminar, we're going to be your trial group in that.
Mhm.
You're going to be rolling that out January 22nd or later January for the congregation.
January 22nd, we will be giving Carol Villaverde and I and Chris will be there too, considering there'll not be some congregational issues. We will be doing a state of the state, talking about where we're at, talking about possible paths forward, and that we as a church and a congregation, these are questions that if we want to be involved, we need to answer. And there certainly is, I mean, certain risks depending on what we do. But yeah, that would be what we're looking at right now.
Mark?
So if you could, I'm sorry. Mary?
Mark, I've got two specific questions. Thank you, Ken. Back specifically for the van, is there to be security during the day for wherever they are?
They have their own security.
Okay. Second question, have we as an organization had any conversations with Church as a Savior about sharing this information and discussing jointly the concerns and benefits of doing all this? I know you're an excellent ambassador and advocate across the board, but just as church to church, or
Nodding yes.
pardon?
He is nodding yes.
Okay, thank you.
We, I mean, of course, Church of the Savior, I mean, we're very close to them, well, at least I am. With John Gill, their minister, we've this church, and I've worked with them many a time, and we are sharing, and that's what this clergy coalition, that's what we are sharing and talking about. John and their associate minister, Tanya Barnett, they have talked to their board. They are fully supportive, and we also realize, and that's one of the ongoing discussions we've had with the clergy coalition, is sharing information, as well as, especially if we're still discussing this, if whether or not that coalition itself should retain the services of a lawyer, and then that information can be spread to the other congregations. But yes.
Thank you. A follow-up question, and I really liked your phrase, houses of faith. I think that seems very inclusive across the board. And with that, are there any houses of faith that are not basically Christian in origin that are part of this?
At this point, no. I would love to involve some of the others. It's tricky, and one of the reasons why this clergy coalition is important, and why people of faith being involved with this, is we all know we're in Tennessee, we're in East Tennessee. I mean, the perception is anybody who's a person of faith is against abortion, and a lot of people that are people of faith that are for abortion, they are scared. I mean, I've talked of the repercussions. I mean, some of the ministers that have been involved in this coalition, they worry about the repercussions from their congregation. And I mean, Planned Parenthood's burned down. I mean, I don't know what happened last night with the drag show, but I know that Ken Peters from the Patriot Church was supposed to be out there in front of the concourse, and that's the Patriot Church is where I'm pretty much sure that the vandalism and destruction of the building here at Planned Parenthood. So, I mean, I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but it sounded pretty good.
Okay, so continuing my overview, we're gonna have this 90 or whatever minute thing, and we'll learn about a lot of these details. If you'll give us a full sort of view next board meeting. And then I would encourage you to have, besides the service, to schedule maybe the following week a forum and get these questions out here, because people need to hear, for example, what you just said about the risks other people are finding. And we all know the risks that we've seen in the past here. So that's the way forward. It sounds good. Any other questions?
I do have something I wanted to raise, and that I'm assuming with this risk assessment that you want it scheduled away from one of our regular meetings, so we need to figure out a date. And Carol and I haven't had a chance to go completely through this, but we want to condense it. I think I would love it to do 2 90-minute sessions, but I think it's more realistic for us to try and pare it down to probably 1 2-hour plus type thing. I mean, if not everybody can come to one, I mean, I'm willing to go through this stuff. I mean, with 2 separate groups, but I think we need to figure out when that would be and what would work. I don't know if y'all want to do a doodle poll. I'm going to be in Baton Rouge for the week of Thanksgiving. And Carol would have been here, but she's dealing with some personal stuff. But I will be back on whatever the Tuesday is after Thanksgiving. And so I can clear out my schedule. Sometimes Tuesday nights are messy as far as church meetings, but let me know what works for y'all. And
Is Zoom
Zoom and in person is fine for me.
Because I think in scheduling, we found with a group this large and the schedules are so tough to get together that, let's plan a Zoom meeting and we'll talk about, and I'll be in touch with you about scheduling it. I feel that this is also a feedback time from us to you. So we've got to figure out what questions our congregation is going to want to know about.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we'll challenge you to make sure that your program is putting together the answers that people are gonna want.
Oh, yeah, most certainly. And I encourage and would welcome any member of the board that wants to start coming to the task force meetings. Right now, we're meeting at 11 on Wednesday.
Lost audio again for those of us on Zoom.
But yeah, I like to, any of you are more than welcome to come. Carol and I've been going to, we're going through a training right now for, unfortunately, a program called Heart to Heart. For this congregation, but we're working on how to change this. But it's a program from the National Network of Abortion Funds, where it's a train the trainer. We are going through to go through a training with people who are interested so they can have the confidence to have conversations with their neighbor, conversations with people within this congregation. It's not a conversation that some people feel easy about. I mean, just because of the stigma that we face. So we've got that, and then we've got a couple of other things working, but we've gone through this reproductive justice congregational organizing, and we've been doing asset mapping. So yeah, I mean, whatever we can do for you and whatever you want to be involved, we would love it. And we will continue doing what we're doing and keeping you updated, and appreciate the board's support and that you are willing to go through this risk assessment. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything.
Linda has her hand up.
Hey, Linda.
Apparently, I'm the only one who doesn't know this. From the first time you said risk assessment, I've been wondering risk assessment of what?
I am so sorry, Linda. I meant to get back in touch with you. You did email me and just it got lost in the shuffle. We're
Okay.
talking about, risk assessment, like low risk assessment, like of drawing attention, of taking a chance of like any sort of consequences, which could be vandalism. It could be just people picketing and protesting, but there's stuff like low. I mean, we could do a fundraiser for, say,
Just advocacy in general.
yeah, advocacy. We could then maybe medium, like host people here talking. Then you get into high, which is, helping with direct action, doing what we did back in the 80s, being a sanctuary church. And so that's what this risk assessment will do, to see where the congregation, where each of us individually are at. And I think this risk assessment will be good in general. Yeah, it looks like we dodged a bullet this election, and I'm sorry, bad analogy. Sorry, I really do apologize.
That was fine.
No.
It's
Sorry.
with our history.
Risk as a liberal church.
Yes, risk is, yeah, and then also individuals, because even though it looks like the Democrats have held the Senate,
Well,
look at our
barely.
state. We have one elective official, Steve Cohen, over in Memphis, that is representing the state that's a Democrat. With them doing the cracking and packing of of Cooper's seat.
Lost audio. Zoom lost audio.
No, what I was saying is that even though it looks like the election, it's that the country as a whole, but Tennessee, we have one elected.
Right.
To the US government, and luckily we have Gloria and Sam McKenzie here,
Right.
but it is what it is. We're in a more challenging area, so. But I guess I've gone a little bit farther than I meant to, Linda, but does that give you an idea of what I was looking at or what we're looking at?
Mhm. Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. I think we need to move along unless there's some other quick question.
I've gone over everything I wanted to go over.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
One last thing, completely not related to this. Membership. Len and I and someone else who's been identified, we will be meeting sometime after Thanksgiving to get the membership committee going, and I mean, so I could have some help.
What? That's awesome.
So anyway,
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's an item later about exactly that. So thank you very much. We have to establish a board meeting time. And this is impossible to do here. It's impossible to do on Doodle. It comes down to a question of the importance of in-person meetings versus the convenience and possibility of organizing Zoom time. So what's the general consensus? We might go to Zoom and then have a luncheon together after Sunday service once a month or something. That's not a meeting. That's just to talk, and be a community with one another regarding the church's business. And that would allow us to, a Zoom meeting, I think we can arrange, even Doodle is up to that. So,
Having a time just to kick ideas around might actually be very beneficial in the long run. It encourages us to think, it would encourage us to think broadly rather than we got to get through this, and this agenda item, and we keep moving them.
and you wouldn't have to take minutes, very.
The ulterior motive, yeah.
Yeah, I personally would appreciate that because there's so many things that they still need to get going. And in talking with people, you learn new things and new potential solutions, or you inspire someone to come up with an idea and so I think it'd be neat to have a meal together or something after church, and maybe then I'd be comfortable with Zoom, but getting together is different than a Zoom meeting, let's face it. But Zoom meetings look like they're in our future just because of the scheduling problems.
Yeah, I was just gonna say on a couple of other committees that I'm on in using Microsoft Teams.
Mhm.
It is very beneficial because it easily allows for me and another member to pop on at any time and just have like a face-to-face chat.
You mean without setting up a Zoom meeting?
Oh,
at
yeah,
a
you
late
just
time?
click
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
mean, do you have an iPhone?
No.
He's got a good meeting.
Okay, so for those of us that have an iPhone, I can call you immediately and see your face, and Microsoft Teams is the same way. So if I see, that Ryan has a green bubble on his name, I can just hit him up and have our and have a chat. But it's so nice, and I think it's a great medium for community and connection because it's spontaneous and hey, you got 5 minutes because a Zoom is laborious and it only has one function and it has to be planned and that's it.
Yeah.
Let me make one of the suggestions just to expand on that and say that not only is it spontaneous, but you can do some structured things in there. I mean, AV's really a great example about how within like the technology task force and the sustainable strategies, key initiatives that we want to have a focused conversation on have a space. So I think about like the topic of the engaging remote viewers, that would Teams would be a great place to pose that question, create some dialogue, capture some ideas, and then after some period of time, decide, well, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's not just kind of the free flowing communication. I mean, you can adopt some structure in it too. That's what I really like about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to go to Teams. The only problem I had when we had a meeting on Teams was, unlike Zoom, I just got 4 pictures, even though there were 8 people.
They fixed that.
Okay.
They fixed that. They've upgraded that. I don't remember how many it is now, AB, but it's a bunch.
Well, the thing with the team, Microsoft is upgrading like every week, they're like, it's hard to keep up with people. So if that ain't there, it's gonna be there.
Yeah, so when I say Zoom, I'm treating it as a generic, like.
An
Kleenex,
online
you
meeting,
know?
yeah.
Okay, okay.
So
Yeah.
online meeting. So what are people's thoughts about that? We're not going to try to schedule right now.
Ken,
Shall we go to Zoom for the December meeting, online December meeting?
Ken,
Yes.
I love that everybody's looking to see who spoke. Didn't we have on the doodle 9 or 10 individuals who indicated there was one time that would be workable?
Would be what?
Workable.
Would be
Thank you.
workable?
No, I don't think so. I think there was one time when everybody but 2 people could come. And those are 2 crucial people, not to name them, but
Unlike some of us who are not crucial.
yeah, some of the uncrucial people could be there.
I caught it, Wendy. You got balls. That's awesome. Yes, yes, as opposed to, yeah.
The peons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just do a show of hands, Ken.
Yeah, so all those who are happy to have the December meeting.
Are we talking about a real Zoom, solely Zoom, or are we talking about a continuation of this hybrid thing where we have some people here and some people attending electronic?
I'm talking about totally online.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
who would prefer before? Yeah, Lynn, you have
Are we still talking about Sunday, or are we talking about like the weeknight, or?
we can schedule it later.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can do a doodle poll and I think we have a better chance with an online meeting. So let me ask, just for a show of hands, how many are happy to have an online meeting in December for
What do
our
you mean
board meeting?
happy?
That will be
I wish
wherever
we were
you
not
want.
like-
Like, I don't.
Just for December, you just want to show of hands?
Let's try it out.
Try it out.
Try it out.
I'm happy to do it.
It would help me so much.
And then I'm doubly helpful.
I mean,
Happy to
for
do it.
Alice.
But see, I didn't want to ask for that because I mean, obviously I participated more in this meeting than I have in any since we've been doing it. Of course, that may not be a good thing, but,
So I will schedule a meeting. Can I borrow your pen, yours?
Fine.
Tell me how to
I'm
use
not,
the pen.
Thank you.
I'm not one of those people who says everybody else ought to adjust to me.
No, I mean, I think overall, we're a group of accommodating folks and we want it to work for the masses, I mean, that's part of being a team, for the majority. I think we can all agree that if schedules were not a barrier, in person is wonderful, but you got immunocompromised or health or whatever, and it's just a pain. I just wish it was the good old days where you just met in person every time and there was no option, but that's just not today's world.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's what I'll schedule then. And
The question, are we talking about actual Zoom or Microsoft Teams?
we're gonna try to get on Teams.
Okay.
And so we'll talk about that a little later. AB is here and can help us with that transition. New business. So auction commitment. So I went ahead and committed the board to an auction item because the deadline was there. I was reminded that we always had an auction item. And so this is going to be the Ruth Martin Game Night and Chili Cook-Off. And so I have not looked at the calendar to find the right spot yet, but typically this would be a Saturday, starting at 5.
Mhm.
I've engaged the gaming group to organize the games.
You have?
We
And
didn't tell her.
Your head.
No. Does the gaming group
Well-
know this?
well, the crucial members of the gaming group.
Oh!
I informally talked with some members of the gaming group, and so it's,
Dick didn't tell you?
No, he's not a gamer. He's not a gamer. So
and
Chloe,
the cooking part, the chili part is going to be a competition. So there'll be various types of chili, and the tradition is to have chili, cornbread, and brownies. We can expand that, add other health foods. But it's not just us doing the cooking, but we get to compete either as individuals or we can form some teams and other people. I've already had a couple people who will contribute their chili. And so we'll have chili supper. And gaming afterwards. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be in the auction. I forget what I set the price for. We can look it up. now.
10, we put it up to 10.
Okay, 10,
I entered.
and I think an unlimited number, should we?
50.
I think we put it at 50. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's your tradition, and I hope that you don't mind me committing us.
But we need a date.
Yeah.
You know, in the
It's,
And before, yeah,
it's
we said it
TBD.
before the actual auction begins on December 1. we need a
Yes,
you know,
yes.
in the past, people brought other things like
There was
side dish, salads. I used to bring
salads, yeah, toppings.
salads to.
Toppings.
Well, they're the
desserts.
toppings too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I would like to organize a pantry team
Are
from
you,
the
are you
board.
setting a date for the auction event? I thought you were gonna do that.
For the chili?
Yeah.
No, I have to look at the
You have to
calendar.
look at the calendar.
I
So
was
that-
told I
because
should
it-
look both at the auction calendar and at the church
Because
calendar.
it needs to be in there by December 1, so it'll
Yeah.
be an email discussion on.
Yeah, I talked to Diane this morning. Pantry. It's filled, I think, twice a day typically, once before 10 and once after 2. Barbara has shown me how it's done. It's all very organized in there. We're not talking about buying the food, although you're welcome to do that as well. We're talking about coming in on a given day, either the morning or the afternoon shift, loading up the wagon. And what does it take? 25 minutes. or something.
According to Bill Cherry, it takes 30 minutes. According to Casey Clark, it takes 15. So.
It take me 45.
So there, it's called the Pantry Checkers Team. We call it Pantry Checkers because not only do we put food in there, but we, make sure there's no graffiti and that kind of stuff.
And you
It's
take a
very-
picture, don't you?
Take a picture before you start, and then you take a picture after you fill it, and you send those to me, because that helps me keep up with what's happening with the pantry, which is a really good thing. It also serves other purposes. But what you haven't said is there's a training session. Actually, there are 2, and I'm there with you, and then you're all on your own, except I'll be there the 3rd time, because it can be confusing and it takes several times to get going, but once you got it, you're in the building, fill that little red wagon, go, and you're done really fast. And because there's so many of you, if you have your own team, mathematically, who's really good at math fast? You just like do it a few times a year.
Yeah.
By the time everybody's involved.
And we could set up a sign up genius. Just put your name in and say, if you're interested, write me. And we'll form a team out of the responses. And And we'll pick a day.
We'll pick a day and it needs to be an afternoon because the mornings are all filled.
Okay,
And we have, I think, 3 afternoons that are available.
okay. And so, write me and I'll circulate that. We'll choose a day. And we'll build a sign up genius you can sign up for, and we'll get the training session lined up. And great. Now, Barbara isn't hesitant to ask for yet another team. So in case you missed the ice cream, sorry, in case you missed the cupcakes and things last week. Each Sunday you plan to have a team that provides,
Let me say something.
yeah, well, let me interpret it for the group. No, go ahead.
So during the winter, when we don't have vegetables from the garden to sell, because in case you're not aware, this summer we married the garden to the pantry. Chris was gonna perform a ceremony, an actual wedding ceremony, but that didn't happen. But they are married, so the garden supports the pantry. Without this fundraiser every Sunday, I'm not sure where the pantry would be. This is an important fundraiser. So it's just for the winter until we start having, vegetables in the spring. And I'm going to, after this meeting with you guys, I'll be talking to every program. Every single program I'm gonna talk to and ask them if they'll do the same thing we're asking you to do. And that is to, as a group, get together and prepare something for the little market that we can sell. And we use that money to buy non-perishable food. What you sell out there is not as important as that you do it. And if you get together to cook in the church's kitchen, it is extremely meaningful. Beyond anything you could possibly do to go to the program and buy a box of donuts or something like that. If you'll meet and cook in the kitchen, regardless of what you cook. We did that once with the Butterfly Garden team. And we made pumpkin bread and it was beyond, the fellowship was beyond anything I've ever done because you're busy, you're cooking, you're enjoying each other's company, you're learning about each other, way beyond anything you could ever learn in this room. So that's a really good thing. So I'll be asking everybody to, every committee, program, team, steering committee, whatever. Yeah.
Are you wanting to-
64 hot dogs in the freezer.
So-
We can have hot dogs.
You're absolutely right. We have a whole list of things that we were going to do, but when I realized that's ridiculous for us to do all that, keep it to ourselves. This is such a good deal. Socially, fellowship wise, church wise, that everybody needs to participate. That absolutely you could do that. And we have a whole bunch of other things from taco bar to box lunch to all kinds of things.
Great.
Would you ultimately like for the each group to pick a Sunday in which they would have that?
Yes, I have a
done?
calendar already.
That's the-
I have a calendar.
Okay, so that's what we
I'm
need to
planning
do
on
as a
this.
group.
Yes, you need to
Okay.
pick a Sunday.
Okay, and it would go, we're coming up on, so December, January, February, March.
April, we won't have
Oh, April.
anything ready until May.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So in my email to you, I'll ask, I'll circulate an email to get your feedback on the pantry team and on this.
People love that. Can I say anything?
Yes,
I want you to know that the I forgot what I wanted you to know. The potluck. We had another potluck. That's what I wanted you to know.
food.
Yeah, we did.
Food, we're on.
So you may know that we moved all of the programs that had anything to do with providing food for food insecure people. We moved those all under one cluster, which is now named the Food Ministry Cluster. So I wanted us all to know that we're on the same page. We serve the same people, the exact same people for the same reason. We are all one. So we had a potluck. it was terrific again. Everybody enjoyed it. There were about 20 people came. Some people couldn't come. It was really great. So I'm going to go to all of the clusters, and there are like 6 more, and encourage them to do a cluster potluck too. So the kitchen is going to get worn out. Yes. I'm finished. Thank you.
So
Okay.
I'm confused on that one, Barbara. Is a potluck for the cluster or is, okay, not for the whole?
No,
Okay.
for the cluster. And in some clusters there, 3 groups, and then some clusters there, 6 or 7 groups.
That's a great idea.
Yes, it is. Yes.
That could be one of our sharing a meal things if we want to do that.
Very good. Good idea.
Do a potluck.
Of course, we had beautiful weather that day.
Yeah, it was.
Turned out okay.
Yes, you were there. I forgot.
The next item, thank you very much, Barbara. The next item is ideas for engaging remote viewers. And as Ryan pointed out, this is not something that we need to mull over here, but we have to get some ideas. And one of the difficulties is a natural place for this is the membership committee. And as you heard from Mark, the membership committee is just starting, and you're the liaison. You're the liaison. And so it's the two of you right now.
Yes, yes.
But just as a couple ideas I circulated, and I want more ideas, is, so what I'm visualizing is that we're long-term multi-platform. And that's in the service and
Lost video, lost audio.
Can you hear me?
It's back. I can hear you, Ken. Yes.
Okay, sorry for the echo. I don't know exactly why. Just a minute. No, that's why I'm able to talk. They're able to hear me because of my microphone.
Lovely feedback.
Oh, there, can you hear now?
Yes.
Well, I recognize the tune.
I hear Eddie.
Yeah,
Are we back?
We're back?
No, well, mute yourself.
I am muted.
You're muted?
No.
How's that?
I think it's good.
Try again.
Yes, I can hear Wendy. I hear Lynn. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Ideas about engaging remote viewers. For one thing is finding out who they are. And the COVID survey gives us some information about people that are only online. I don't know about long-term though, but apparently there are people who have never been in the church in person who are online, and that may be a long-term thing. And we may attract people specifically online. And so they deserve some of the community that we're used to in person. And that's one of the strange things about this Zoom world is, and it's evolving. And so that is that a lot of people are happy to go to Zoom, remote work as an example. You're happy to go to remote work, but part of the reason it works is that you knew those people in person before. Up to 2 years ago, you knew them in person. And so now remote work works. But 10 years from now, when a person joins a remote work group and doesn't know any of the people. So that's the same kind of situation that we would eventually face probably is. So the question is how to engage the remote attendees. And so I've talked with a small group ministry and suggested that they have some maybe recruiting for explicitly Zoom or team-based small groups. There are some now, but they're sort of intending to become in person again. Committee work is possible when the committees are either multi-platform or just on Zoom, just remote. Finding out, I think we can reasonably ask people to self-identify if they'd like and find out who's out there. I think we can see numbers, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Who or how many people on a platform. So other ideas about engaging people and building that community would be appreciated.
Lynn, you mentioned that there was a church in Morristown that had done a really good job of engaging people online. Which church was that?
It was the Avenue.
What?
It's called the Avenue.
Uh-huh,
It's just a non-denominational church.
okay.
And they have members now up in Michigan and Illinois and New York, and they're literally out of state, never been here, and they're members of this church now because they did such a good job during the pandemic. I don't know how they marketed it out there.
Yeah, I was, it would be really,
How these people found them, but
yeah,
I several people I work with go to that church, and they've had people fly in from Michigan and get baptized in this church in Morristown and then fly back home.
wow. That might be worth paying some attention to.
The question Barbara asked is what engagement means. And it's a two-way street. That is, build community for them more than just listening on Sunday. And so a small group is an example, or book club, or, other things that they could become involved in. And also us knowing who they are. So if there are things that we can do to serve that community, maybe more programs need to go online. If they're in Michigan, maybe they need more time.
Ken?
Yeah.
I attended a RIM conference and they had a whole 4-hour session on online engagement. I sent the presentation to Chris. I can send it to you.
Okay, thank
So
you.
RIM had a whole session on how to engage people online.
Does it use Realm?
Well, the idea is the same. No, you actually use social media a lot,
Oh.
but it uses RIM's database to keep track of what's happening on social media.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to learn more about that. So, yeah, forward that to me.
Okay.
Ken,
Yes.
I think that I would be really glad to see this under membership to flourish. As one of the folks that's been doing online attendance at the Sunday services and a number of other things, I think there are some ways, and Lynn, I noticed during your doing the board announcements this morning that there were several pieces that really invited and acknowledged the fact that there were online folks there. One thing that I've been kind of keeping track of is, and I think my suspicion is it's not listed in the board announcements, is for it's very specific, the online Zoom coffee hour, that I haven't heard that mentioned in several Sundays. And occasionally somebody might throw it in later in the service, or occasionally somebody might wave to the people who are online when RE speaks, or somebody in particular is just talking. But I think just during the service, there are a number of things there that we could do a little differently to be more inviting for the folks. And I would encourage us, like Mark helped me understand, that using the word multi-platform for this meeting instead of another term I can't even remember now, because he helped me take that hybrid. He helped me take that so far out of my thinking I couldn't even remember it. But the kind of words that we use to describe what we're talking about. And I think just from a personal perspective, online seems friendlier than remote. I know remote is out there for a lot of different reasons, but that's just a very tiny, small thought. So just some of the ways we can incorporate in our regular services a little more attention to the high at the cameras for people who are out there. Small stuff.
Thank you. I think you sort of agree that membership is the place to get this started.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe have some sort of, there's not even a committee, so there wouldn't be a subcommittee, but some kind of, some sort of dedicated online membership.
Well, building up the committee is a key thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I've also thought, she mentioned the online coffee hour. I wondered if it would be possible to set up a laptop or something in the fellowship hall and have like a little where people could pop in while they're here, pop in and say hi to the people that are online. Kind of
That's
like,
what I was gonna ask. Do you do that? I've never been to online coffee. Does that
What's
happen?
that? What-
No,
It does happen?
I get, apparently, I've never done it, but yeah.
no, we used to go to.
What was the
that
question?
coffee hour. The coffee hour, the question was whether there's ever.
Oh, you'd like that again. No audio. No audio. Lots of good visuals, but no audio.
Look, if you can do that with coffee hour, you can do that with a potluck.
How do you have an online?
You're back. You're back. Now, please, what was the question?
They can come and eat with us.
So we're back.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That was.
So the question is, has it ever been the case that a Zoom link was set up in the in-person coffee hour so that those in the online coffee hour could interact with anyone at the in-person coffee hour? Not to my knowledge.
Not to my knowledge. The attendance has been really small. I had committed and I've only missed one to attending the Zoom coffee hours as a board member. And the attendance has been small, but it's been important. There's been 4 different people who've popped in from Kentucky. Somebody here who's in her 90s and her daughter comes and sets it up. A couple of other people that I haven't seen again recently. Oh, Mooney from Kentucky pops in regularly. And I think it's very small, but to me, it's very mighty. And I would really, with these kind of suggestions, I think we could grow it some.
seems like, we should add that somehow to the board member on duty speech.
Yes.
So that when we
Yeah,
invite people to the coffee hour.
Under
we
the
should put it in there.
script.
And,
yeah.
and also tell people how to access it, because even though I was attending a lot of Zoom Sunday services, I wasn't always clear how to get into the coffee hour. I know they always said, join us on our coffee hour, but I thought, well, okay, what button do I push to get in there?
I know, I always had to look it up on my wife's Facebook page.
Right, so
Find
that's-
that picture
So
of the
that's not
coffee.
an easy invitation. You can say, well, join us and just figure out how to get there on your own.
It is
Yeah.
always on the online order of service email that goes out every Saturday afternoon. There's always a link there. I think, I could be wrong, but I think that there was, at least at one point, a link on the main TVUC webpage.
So it's
I
very
know some
COVID.
things have recently gotten shifted
It would be
around
good,
here.
yeah, it'd be good if we could have something that the board member on duty could say
Yeah, go here.
easily, this is how you get there without, you know, a
And the
25
link
words.
always stays the same,
Yes.
just like the link for this board meeting. It is always the same unless we have to change
yeah,
the actual Zoom account that it's on. So if you go back and look at a Zoom link from May, it's gonna be the same one as today's. Kind of thing. It would also be easy for us too, Ken, if someone wanted to be responsible for bringing a laptop. We could set it up in the fellowship hall on a table and log into the Zoom coffee hour. And folks could come by and speak and all like that. You may get a lot of
noise.
noise. Yes, yes.
Well, thank you. We're really,
AB's
oh, sorry.
We have 2 nooks just like that one there. You could set up with the other nook and then conference when you wanted to.
That's
Yeah.
that little box there.
Yep. And I think there's a TV in there, isn't it?
There is.
So you can set up that one the same as you do here.
There is. I am also working quite a bit, just so you guys know, with Nick Potter. He gives me feedback just about every service, as someone who is visually impaired, as to how we can help those folks that are listening online, who perhaps can't see the service, but they can hear it.
Nice.
Time has really moved along, hasn't it? There are a couple items here. The resolution supporting the Knoxville Jewish Alliance. It's gonna have to be put on hold. Chris was going to generate a resolution and I haven't heard from him, so.
Can I ask you quickly, why are we needing to have a resolution to support? What is?
Because they're under threat due to the anti-Semitic
due to
atmosphere.
the-
Anti-Semitic atmosphere.
Oh, okay.
And there are congregations which are developing security methods, hiring security services and so on. Because the threat is considered so real.
Okay. All right, I'm valuable, wasn't aware of that.
So I'll get back to that. Committee on Shared Ministry. The idea is if you can visit that website that I had. that link-
Rob? Thank you.
I just a lot of- I've got-
That's fine. All right.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
See you.
Now, in the shared ministry, we never had a committee. I couldn't see it in the governance manual.
No, we had a committee on ministerial relations. Some people don't recall it. I recall it explicitly. And that went away some years ago. And this is a different thing. The ministries is a term here that they use to describe all of our ministries, whether it's food ministry, worship ministry, music ministry, RE ministry. And so the idea is that it's not just a senior minister, but this would be a committee of, say, 3 congregants plus Chris. And if we had another associate minister, an associate minister, so that they can exchange information about the ministries in the church, just from the senior minister to the other ministries.
Right.
And it would not be an evaluation vehicle. It would be a way to get communication going. Which I think is
Yeah.
needed.
As far as what that video was saying, was these ministries really help support the mission on there, and the board helps support the mission, but on the governance side, not on this side.
Yeah. So we'll have to bring that up another time. Important, 2 things. I'm sorry again for the delay, but the COVID survey. And Angela, you've been waiting a long time patiently there. Are you still there?
I am. Hello.
Yeah, could you give us a very brief summary? As far as I can see, the latest report is a slight uptick in things, but still quite low.
Do you mean about case rates? Is what you're asking about?
Hospitalization, et cetera, the things.
Okay.
that you
You know
consider.
what? I'll even admit that I haven't looked at it this week because everything's been staying so stable, but I do check it each week. So I'm going to open a tab right now while I'm talking to you all and double check that. But as of yet, here locally in Tennessee, we haven't felt it. But as you all know, and it was mentioned earlier about different things, we are getting hit really hard with influenza and RSV and strep. And and this is just anecdotal, but we got an email from our child's school on Thursday saying, just so you know, one person in your child's classroom was just simultaneously diagnosed with COVID, strep, and flu at the same time, a child. So, and I predict that child probably has some pretty significant health outcomes from that. But so we are seeing this dramatic increase in overall respiratory disease is what I'm trying to say with that. And overall nation as a whole, we are continuing to see increasing numbers of COVID cases moving from the Northeast and down, which is the same pattern that has occurred with every other wave. So nothing significantly new, but it's just doing what it's always done. And I am loading the exact numbers right now. And the CDC is being very... Yeah, so actually our case rate has jumped a little bit, as has our new admissions per 100,000. And we are starting to see in upper Northeast Tennessee counties turning yellow and orange. So it is headed this way. That would be the summary.
Yeah, so that makes it crucial that we decide whether there's a need for adjustment in the COVID policy. And I have on the screen the summary data, which you should have access to. I guess, Mary, you made it in?
No,
Okay.
yeah, no. Ken, if you had sent me something earlier, if you would just try sending that to me again, or go ahead and use my regular email address, either one of them, they all come out to the same place. I would appreciate that.
Well, it's just seeing the responses, and now these documents are on Team. The TVUUC board team in the files, there's a directory for the COVID survey. And I circulated these by email. And so these are the responses in the summary that provided by Forms, Google Forms. With regard to the medium protocol, under which masks are mandatory, which response most closely matches your opinion? And I can actually, if you give me just a second, I can bring up the actual website, and so you can see a little of the interaction. So
I was gonna say, Ken, I have it up if you want me to pull it. And actually 2 more people have responded since last night. So we're up to 126 on total responses.
yeah, well, I've got it right here.
Okay. And one of them came in during this meeting. So it was 125 earlier. So
Yeah, there were 2 new ones. So
Yep.
this summary is this
yeah, this is the helpful page.
summary that I circulated is based on 124. But in the interactive thing, you can see I support making masks optional, more lenient is 43%. I support the protocol as written is, 47%. And I support requiring masks without exception, that's more stringent, as 7%. And then there were some comments. The second question was if the policy was changed to make masking optional at medium, which response most closely matches? And so 63% I would be just as likely, 27% I would be less likely to come. Excuse me, I need a drink. And 7% I'd be more likely to attend. And 1 comment. Would you object if the board established mask policies for offsets classrooms based on their occupants and activities, which might differ from the mask policies in common areas, sanctuary and fellowship hall? So there was quite a positive response. I would not object to this, to the board setting these policies. And there was a quarter of the responses which would object. And then I have accumulated all the open question responses that are listed here. I put those in a document and circulated it to you, except for the 2 recent ones. I left the survey open just so people could continue if they, wanted to put their word in. So there are very interesting comments. I encourage you to look at them. I think there are ways to go. To me, the 2 issues are voluntary masking at medium and different requirements in different areas of the church. So I'd rather hear from somebody else. My voice is going. So. Yeah.
Cranberry juice or something.
Thank you. So anyone else?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want a copy?
No, I'm fine. This will help. What did people think of the survey? Have you had time to look at it? And
It's difficult to read the comments. Is there some way they could be collected in a more readable
You know, one of the things I noticed.
I haven't collected in a document, single document, all the comment.
Oh, okay, well, I printed out the spreadsheet because I just got it like this morning.
Yeah, they're in the
And it's-
spreadsheet, but they're
and it's-
impossible to
it's
read there.
impossible to read, that's what I'm saying.
I gave a different document to you.
Okay.
I circulated it in the email last night.
I didn't get the one though in the multicolors.
Color print.
I guess
I don't feel I need it. It's okay.
Yeah. I guess I may have to look at the emails again, but I didn't see a really readable collection of comments anywhere.
If you do the link and like the editor link thing that he sent us.
Yeah.
You can see them. They're just all like this. and you can just-
I'll
you
try
can
this.
just
I don't.
Highlight that and then.
Didn't you get the PDF? I sent a PDF last night.
I don't think, I was out last night, so I probably just logged. on my-
Party
As I was going to bed. It was
Party
a
animal.
birthday, I didn't.
There they all are.
Okay.
It
then I'll-
seems to sort them by number of characters.
Okay,
Yeah, one thing I
it was like,
noticed,
this was, as I was going to bed, I only saw it.
Yeah. one thing I noticed, well, maybe two things I noticed, and Ken let me be an editor so I could follow it all, as people were putting it in there, was that majority of the people that said they were okay with the policy as it is in medium, most of them also said that they would still come to church if it was changed on there. And also it was another interesting thing, there was I know there were half a dozen, 8
Oh, I do have it.
people in the same family, but they answered differently. Not the same, not exactly the same, maybe it's not all 3, but one
Yeah.
would say, I would, both would say, maybe I approve of the current protocol. But one would say, I wouldn't come to church less, and the other one said I would come the same on there. So, I thought that was pretty interesting on there.
I feel with regard to the separate policy question, different parts of the building, there were some comments. Which I think are common sense. That is, if you are occupying an office, like you're one of our staff, that you should have the right to, have the policy for people visiting you in the office. I think we could establish that as a board policy without putting it in the broader COVID policy. I think the COVID policy that's is basically a policy for Sundays for the general congregation. So, for example, if we set a policy that a small group meeting on Tuesday night could set their own masking policy, I think that is a policy that does not need to be in the church policy. And I don't think that it causes a lot of confusion. Communication, I know, is one of the things that Angela has emphasized. Yes, Mary.
Yeah, I think that whatever it seems to me, if we got these percentages and data for keeping or changing the policy, coming or not coming, keeping the policy at masks at medium would have won. I think it has won here. I think that is a good, clear indicator for us. I think with the number of people who've said changing the policy wouldn't make a difference in whether they show up now, compared to the folks who would not come or would come. I think to me, that's a clear, just thinking in terms of the election terminology again, I think that's a clear winner. So I think for us as a board, keeping masks mandatory at voluntary, for all the other reasons that we did that in the first place, I think that results from the survey indicate that that's what we should do as well. So I would like us to go ahead and make a decision on that. I think as far as the board changing policy for other locations, I think, Ken, you said something about Sundays versus other days, and I don't think that's as much of an issue because it's still a public health concern. So I think I think the board needs to set the policy in consultation with staff and in consultation with standards of health and safety and public health, but as we've been doing, for what small groups could do. I think that discussion of having each small group develop their own standard is questionable for me, but I think we could go ahead based on the survey. And I also want to apologize to the whole board and to Angela and the task force for just falling out on my raising my hand and saying I would do that. I just had underestimated the whole picture of what it's been taking to, my knees in better shape than me holistically was for a little bit of time there. So I apologize for falling out on that and having that fall on other people. So my apologies for that. But I think the data is good to have. I think we can go ahead and make the decision from, as I read it, unless people read it differently. The responses to the major questions seem to indicate keep masking mandatory at medium. And I think we can then use that for all the kids who have COVID plus RSV plus the flu, and for others in the community.
Thank you, and no need to apologize. It worked out. I want to thank in particular Angela, because once she showed me how Google Forms works, it was a bit of a learning curve for me, but boy, you may see a lot of surveys going through.
I want to make a comment as far as the small groups and other people that show up in the middle of the week, not on Sundays. They're already making their own, most of them already making their own decisions right now about masking or not masking. And most of them aren't masking at medium.
And it would be nice if the board would say it's okay for small groups to do that. And this is groups that are not open to the general public, but you know ahead of time who's going to be there and you make a decision.
You know, my small group is guilty.
Yeah,
Even though
we do
I'm
too.
the only one that wears a mask. We have to, just because I'm on the board.
What is considered the policy if, so the staff group is meeting here, the Philatelic Society or
For
whatever.
renters, yeah.
If we go to medium and say masks are required in the building, are we saying it applies to them?
We have been saying that. Now, it's been a while since we've been in medium, so I don't even know that they were meeting when we were in medium.
I don't think so, not here.
Yeah, so I think we may, if that happens, we may lose some groups again, because they, will have some people, so I guess the question is there a distinction between a rental group and a church group? Before, we just had a sign on the door that said, we are at the medium level, masks are required, and we told if there were spaces that they were not required in, So I would think that would be up to the board to decide whether that applies to rental groups or not, and be prepared for the fallout if some of those groups say we're not going to meet.
I'd like to hear other opinions. Let's first start with the voluntary masking question. And to be honest with you, I gathered this, started looking at spreadsheet at 10 o'clock. And I was watching the Nevada results at the same time. So I think there are things in there like Eddie mentioned about some additional information rather than just the choice made on that particular question. And so, for example, whether it would change how much you come to church. So, but what are did other people have enough time to look at this to come to an opinion for themselves about what we should do with the masking? Should it be voluntary? Yeah, Lynn.
My biggest takeaway from the results was the next question where it said, would you, yes, that one. So 27% said that they would not come if masking was optional.
They'd come less.
They would come less, they would be less likely to come. And that was what, the number was 34? Is that what it worked out to be?
This is
of-
27%,
Yeah,
34 people.
34 people. And attendance is averaging what, Claudia, about 90?
Somewhere in that 80 to 90 range.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big, if all these people actually come every week and
Right,
then
because how
then
many
they're not.
people are saying that they would come?
Exactly.
Yeah, what is that blue number, Kim?
That's 80 people.
Yeah,
And that's about how many come anyway, so. I don't. If you look at that, that doesn't add up to normal attendance anyway.
And
So,
if they don't come, doesn't mean they're not gonna be watching online.
yeah,
Or sit in this room.
right. But that was my biggest takeaway, was that that was a pretty big chunk.
right, because we do have a significant number of people, not so many in this room, but we are seeing an uptick of people in the fellowship hall for whatever reason. Now, most of them
Watching the service.
watching the service. Now, they are not necessarily masked, but there are more people in there. Used to be during the service, only Dee was in there. Now there's usually anywhere from maybe 6 to 10 people in there.
But that's probably not for masking, because fellowship hall is a place that we don't require masks anyway.
Right, I'm not saying because of
Yeah,
the masking,
it's
but
separate.
maybe
Maybe they
because
just,
it's a
yeah.
smaller group
You know,
of people, maybe they feel more comfortable. I don't
it's
know.
hard to know.
Depends on what's on screen.
Hmm.
It depends on, for people in the building and they hear what's happening. They may go in there to see what's on.
Maybe maybe they come and go more, they have things to do when they're,
Yes.
And it's not disruptive.
you know,
It is disruptive if you have to get up in the middle of the service
and like-
and walk toward the speaker
Right,
and then head out the door.
right,
You know, you go,
everybody's
Really?
wondering what's wrong with her, is she mad at the speaker? Yeah.
Any other board members want to put in their response?
I'll just sort of summarize my own opinion. I think it does look as if maybe more people support the mask requirements at the medium level. However, I do support, so I would go with that, but I still like the idea of having exceptions in certain spaces, like the fellowship hall. I don't want to lose the coffee hour, you know. And also maybe specifying that small groups can make their own determination.
I would extend that
And-
personally to renters.
Yeah, right. So renters make their own rules and small groups can make their own, you know, the small group is any kind of event that is not open to the general public, the people attending that event would make their own decision.
And we are just talking about medium yet.
Right.
So
and in all of this, have we lost RE and what they require and don't require?
this does not separate them. This. Right. Under this policy, if we did not change it to voluntary masking, my understanding is it would be just like it is now.
Okay.
Others, yeah,
So there's,
Debbie or Bill, any,
I was just gonna say the RE
It looks like
would
Angela has
not,
her arm.
the RE section of the building would not be one of those sections that is exempt from the masking requirement, basically.
right, it's just the fellowship hall. and the
Well,
kitchen.
regular fellowship hall and, yeah. But we could designate other spaces for some reason to be. exempt.
I mean, right now at Lowe, we're demanding
Yeah, for Lowe,
masking
it doesn't
in
matter.
this room and room A.
Right, that's masks required.
Right, yeah, but it's
But at
different. than the
medium,
hub.
it would,
Yeah,
medium
yeah.
would be, right.
Yeah.
Fellowship, mask required everywhere except the fellowship hall, but we might have,
Yeah, but the
Another room.
question was on there, you know, they want, you know, you wanted either wear masks or not wear masks for the whole
Right.
church.
right,
On there, we're not doing that at
right.
at the low level.
Lynn,
I was just
oh,
gonna,
I'm sorry, maybe, I saw your hand up, yeah,
Oh, it's Angela, I think, and it's
maybe had her hand up.
two. Okay.
Can she hear? Can you hear us, Guy?
You might be muted, maybe.
Oh, there, we can hear you now. No, we can't hear you. Maybe we can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Did you?
you're muted.
No, she's not muted.
Maybe no microphone. Still
Can't hear
can't.
you.
No,
I think our mic's not working.
Yeah.
It's a common problem today.
Yeah. Well, works both ways. You could send it in chat. And Ken could read it.
Oh, there are 13 things in chat. What are all those?
Oh. I haven't-
You haven't read them?
Not yet.
Wait,
Can anybody hear us there?
say again.
No.
No,
Can't hear you.
can't hear
Can't hear
you.
you.
We need,
Okay, you keep working on that and we'll go to Angela. I don't have,
No, I got it. Thank you. And there were a lot of different icons that came up like X's and everything until I finally got my hand up this time. So sorry, I wasn't Xing anyone or endorsing or anything earlier. I guess my question just regarding the survey as a whole, I feel like you all are already jumping to what changes you want to see. And I wanted to ask, are you using the survey? In what ways are you planning to use this information? Is it informing the decisions you make? Is it just so you have that information available? And again, and this is not to argue a position, but numerically, if you combine on the first question, those who want to keep the status quo as it is, and you add the people who want it more strict, it is a clear majority. And so as of right now, it seems like people are saying they want the status quo, but it seems like you all are already discussing to making changes. And so I didn't know, just in general, for the record, like, is the survey being used to inform the decisions or made, or is it just so we know what people are thinking?
anyone else like to talk? I want to bring up, I'm concentrating on my computer for a second because I want to bring up the spreadsheet. So anyone else have a comment while I do this?
I think that
That's the question.
She
Go
wants
ahead.
to know how we're going to
Go ahead.
use it. And
Well, to decide again, whether we want to change the current policy or not,
Yeah.
right?
See, I have a,
go ahead.
I don't know, the question is, you know, asking, are you happy with the current policy? You know, people's may be happy with it, but they would be okay coming to church if we didn't have it. It's kind of skews. I mean, I don't think both of those match each other on there.
If I can take a second to, on the screen, I have the spreadsheet. It allows you to compare some things. So for example, we see a number here which say more lenient. We have a number that say support as written. Support as written says just as likely to come. Support as written says just as likely to come. Support as written says less likely to come. Support as written less likely to come. Just as likely. More likely. Just as likely. So yeah, I would say that if you add those categories, as you said, it's a majority, a clear majority, but there are details within that. My own answer for what we're using this for is to inform us on these two key issues. Also, if we stay with the current policy, the fact that people had a chance to express their opinion will make it easier for those who wanted, for example, to become more lenient if we kept it this way. I think they'll feel much more comfortable that this is a congregational contribution to the decision.
I appreciate that answer. And that's what I assumed it was. It just seemed like the data actually show that people are comfortable with it as written. But yet the idea is that you're already talking about making it more lenient because, hey, but they'll still be okay with it. And just because they'll be okay with it isn't actually said what the people say they want. And so it seemed kind of contradictory there to say, they say this is what they want. They want to keep the status quo, but we're going to change it anyway because we know they'll come still. And that just didn't feel like honoring what the people said. And again, I am not trying to promote a particular view. I'm just trying to say that's what the data showed. And so it seemed kind of contradictory in that regard of saying this is what the people said, but we're still going to change it because we hope they'll still show up anyway. And
I completely agree with what Angela said, and that it just seems I'm having a hard time getting my mind around the fact that the clear percentages, especially when you add categories, I think in both of those two first questions say that we're good as it is. Clear majority, over 50% in both questions. If you combine those two categories, I think it makes it difficult to go back and try to parse out individual comments. That's the beauty of aggregate data, is that you can see that overall. And we'll have people who answered one way over here and what might seem contradictory over there, but that's why, in my understanding and in my experience, we use surveys like this to get the overall perspective of people. And I have to say, it feels as a little bit that we've got the data in front of us now from this particular set of questions for the congregation as a whole. We have had a board vote on this policy. Yes, it was close, but I also, I'm wondering over time that, and we'd had a good set of discussions. And I think Linda led part of this discussion earlier about whatever we do with a vote, let's be true to that. And this, I'm paraphrasing, I'm putting in my own terms. Let's be true to that, and let's do what UUA and what we have said we would do, is to speak with one voice. And I just have this sense that, there's a subset that really wants to make masking voluntary. And it's the data that we're getting from this survey in particular does not support that. It doesn't sound like it's going to negatively affect attendance, which is up, thankfully. It doesn't sound like it's going to make a difference in those ways. And I think we just need to accept that and move on to other things. If we keep that policy overall, with the exceptions that we have, such as the taking your mask off, eating and drinking, we can settle that and then move on to if there are policy areas that the board wants to set for smaller groups. And a couple of folks have made examples here, but I'm just hearing and feeling this reluctance to accept what the data says, because we might have an opinion differently from that. I respect everybody here. I did recently read the covenant because of particular comments that were made in regard to the survey. And I think that in keeping with the covenant overall, I think we should be ready to move on, keep this the policy as it is, and as our congregants support in numbers and percentages, and move on to other things.
Let me read a chat, because this came in when Mebby couldn't speak. Well, I'm not sure what the issue is, but if we could require masks in the common areas during medium, if individual groups want to be unmasked in a meeting room, they need to mask coming into the building and while going to the bathroom, etc. So, yeah. So Lynn had his hand up first. Sorry, Lynn.
Just two things, kind of tagging on to what Mary was saying, and not to claim to read your mind, but I think what you've been saying so far about different changes were more of like amendments to the current policy rather than doing away, like saying for the offices that they can set their own. Is that correct with that inference there that we're talking about amending it and not completely getting rid of it?
I'm saying that those things don't need to be in the church policy. If you go into an office and there's a sign that says please mask,
Then you mask.
I think everybody will.
And my other comment was, if we do say masking is optional, I think we need to group low and medium together. Angela had brought that up in the virtual meeting that we had. Because otherwise low and medium are going to just be the same identical thing. And just say at low or medium, we require this, and then at high, we require this. But I could honestly vote either way.
Wendy?
I'm confused by that. I thought we were just discussing a loose and medium policy. So I was gonna say that I was in the school of moving towards more lenient policy. I'm actually surprised by the result of the survey. So looking at the survey, I would switch my vote if I were voting, which I didn't before, to requiring masks at the medium level. So I am influenced by the survey, but I also wanted to say I would tweak the wording a little bit. I found it confusing to say that masks are optional in the fellowship hall if you're eating or drinking. And it sounds like you have to be drinking. If you want to go into the fellowship hall and not have a cup of coffee, it should still be optional. But I just found the wording confusing.
We actually suppressed the word actively eating.
Or something like that. I just take that out. I mean, but base it not on whether you're eating, but where you are. You know, if you're in the fellowship hall, masks are optional. Period. Even if you choose not to eat or drink.
Maybe it's time for me to throw my comments in, because I think it's been clear that I've been in favor of voluntary masking. I didn't try to hide it. But like Wendy, I feel after looking at the survey that we should not change that policy. And moreover, with the strong vote in favor of allowing different policies for different parts of the building. And actually, I think it's something that Angela said in an email, maybe just to me, I forget. I don't think that needs to be part of the church-wide policy that people read when they click on. If we were to say that groups using the classrooms, rental groups, can set their own policies when we're at medium. And certainly when we're at low. And so I don't think overall that I feel that there's any need to change this policy at this point. That's my personal, where I come down, because I think we have the ability to make additional policies as board policies, like for the offices and for rental groups and spaces. So I would personally vote to stick with the current policy at medium.
I just had,
Eddie?
I have some, a lot of thoughts running through my head, but how many, 129 people on the service?
124.
24, it says, and say, from what I read, I think probably 95% of them come to church on there from the survey. You know, I kind of wonder what's keeping the other 200 plus people we haven't seen in a year or 2 years from coming back into the church on there. And you know, and it always crosses my mind is because they don't want a mask on there. Because I know a lot of people outside of church don't want a mask.
And they're not answering the survey, you think?
Right. And I know a lot of people in this church that don't want a mask on there. But and they have told me they don't want a mask, but but they answered that they were okay with the survey, but they would still come to church.
Okay,
if it
with
was
policy.
changed.
Oh.
Yeah, so, you know, that's my biggest concern is it's not the people come to church right now, is trying ways to get those other 200 plus people back in our church on there. And masking may not be the right answer, but it's still a big concern for me on there to get those people we hadn't seen in a while to come back in here. But we did see, you know, when we had the the picnic and everything, we saw some on there. You know, why?
They weren't masked.
Why did
They were
they, you know,
eating.
why did they, why, why did they come? You know, I don't think we have all the answers here, but I see that as a big problem and we need to have those people back and new people on there.
I do think that being physically present in church isn't the only measure for participating in church. And as we move more and more to multi-platform, I think that, that's, it's nice, it's lovely, it's great to see people in person. But I've just find that to be something to consider. It's probably something a lot of people think about perhaps, but it's not the only way to know who is engaged, who cares, who is participating in more than one way. We don't know that as much as anything else. And I mean, I can see that it looks like most of the people who took the survey out of all of these, as it becomes fewer and fewer people participating, do support policy as written, even though I first looked at the data, it looked like people wanted a more lenient medium level policy. But I do think that if people are here, I want to be sure that they do have an area where they can get together for coffee hour, and they don't have to be actively, drinking and eating, that kind of thing, but have a place where they can have real community. And as long as we can preserve that, then I think the rest of it is details. Small groups that don't, that may or may not feel that
They won't follow the policy.
they
anyway.
won't follow it, right? Or they
They're not
will,
guilty about it.
or they will move off campus, which is what my small group did. We just moved out. So,
Our recorder group is going to another church.
Right.
We
Well-
can't play recorder with masks on.
well,
You can, but not well.
Lynn, Lynn had his hand up.
Oh, I was just gonna tag on with what Eddie was saying about the people that are MIA. Where are they?
Folks, I'm sorry to say that the audio is faded a lot. Can barely hear you, but it's faded.
Maybe are you near a microphone? Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, it was all three, Alice,
Oh.
Wendy, and then Lynn, you were fading.
I
Maybe we're just fading
I think we were
ourselves.
just
Yeah.
distant.
We're all faded.
Fading.
Thank you, sorry.
here, Ken, well,
Alice, I heard you there.
But-
Mary, can you hear? Ken?
Yes. I hear Alice, I do not hear Ken.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yes.
okay.
Because he didn't say.
Go ahead, go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, I was just gonna say that for those that have been MIA, we've been at low for a long time with no masking requirements. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why they were staying away, because
Good point.
we've been at low for a long time now. But that is one thing that Mark and I want to look at when we get membership going, is getting these
People back.
missing people back.
Angela?
Angela, if you're talking, we can't.
I
hear
know, I just unmuted myself. I'm sorry.
you.
Do we really want to go to all Zoom meetings? I just.
I don't know, and we've not had problems like this before with all of us with audio. Okay. I was going to actually say exactly what Lynn just said, is that we've been at low for over 2 months. So I'm hearing comments about, well, there are these people in the, who are staying in the fellowship hall and everything. And maybe they're staying away because people aren't masked, but no one's masked anywhere in the building unless they choose to be. So generalizations about attendance and where people go right now and whether they're not coming, I don't think really can be made, because we've been at low for essentially 2 entire months. I was actually had my other tab open trying to figure out when that actually happened. And that's wonderful, wonderful news. So I would think and Chris sent out some messages, even Nick Potter did a couple months ago, talking about the larger just schema of like what is affecting church attendance, and that we need to not forget COVID isn't the only thing. COVID changed everything, but it's not the only thing that's affecting church attendance. And we do have online options, and we're never going to go back from that. And so that does change how we need to think about who comes and who doesn't and why. And then I did want to address Eddie's thing, because he's mentioning like he's hearing from lots and lots of people that, you know, they don't want to do masking and everything. And I believe those recounts are true. But I do want to bring people back to the data, including what Ken has on the screen right now on the question of if we were to drop to medium, and we can only go on what people submitted. And if you look at this and you take out all the people who just stay status quo and say it doesn't change, 3.5 times as many people, 34 people reported they would be less likely to attend versus the 9 individuals who said that they would be more likely to attend. So if you just go on what was provided as responses, it actually looks like it will have a more negative impact on attendance if you were to remove it, at least based on what people responded, versus the negative supposed impact on the people not coming because they don't want to wear a mask. So again, I just wanted to bring people back to at least the reported data as shown.
We should have responded to the survey.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. And we have a great sample size. It's a good sample size. It's 126. It's almost exactly how many we had in the survey back September 2021 when we had 128. So I think we're not going to get more than this.
Yeah, I would, at this point, like to make a motion that we maintain the current policy. How many people have we lost, however? So Rob is gone.
Oh, we still have.
Right.
You still have a quorum with your online people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we definitely always count.
so I would like to make a motion that the policy, which we post for the congregation, remain as is. So this includes mandatory masking at medium, includes fellowship hall, food and drink, fellowship hall and kitchen. And it doesn't say any, and need not say anything about other portions of the building being any different. So is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Lynn seconds. Discussion?
Can I repeat my suggestion that we rephrase the exception for fellowship hall and not make it appear that you have to be eating and drinking? Am I being silly? I just find when I read that, I find it a very confusing statement. Barbara's nodding, she's on.
But I'm not on the board.
Well, that's true, but.
I feel that a change in the policy will be more confusing if we don't just say the way it is, because that's it's functioned properly, I believe.
And
Lynn.
what we're all not masking, we're in there anyway.
That's what I was
I know.
gonna say, is when we were at medium, no, you know, we weren't enforcing it, nobody's walking around saying, get your mask on.
Because you're not.
People
That's
would-
right, we
people
don't
would
have
pull their-
mask police.
Right, but people would be, you know, start drinking their coffee and then the mask just wouldn't go back on.
I know, I know.
So they were essentially doing that.
Well, maybe the next time it's rewritten, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Provide them sippy cups.
Everybody have a kid cookie in your hand. That's right. After we eat it.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. I'd like to get
We need a
Aye.
consensus.
Aye.
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 Opposed,
opposed.
show of hands. Mary opposed.
Oh, no, I thought you were asking, I'm definitely voting for this.
Okay.
Okay, so that motion passes. Now we'd like to, in the splinters to the board, point out this and point out that we ran a survey. And
Oh, God.
we have to figure out how to word it, but yeah, the intention, in my mind, the advantage of having this survey is that people who would want more leave.
Audio's out. Audio is out at Ken saying the people who would want more lenient.
People who would
Name that too.
want more leniency,
Are you muted?
I will now.
Okay.
Try now.
Okay, are we back?
Yes, thank you.
People who would want more leniency in masking, we'll recognize that our survey showed the congregation's mood was not to change the policy at this time.
Majority.
And so I think that will make the continued masking easier for those who would like to remove it.
And may I just add to that, Ken, to phrase it a little differently, that those people who approve of the current policy or would like it more stringent have felt heard.
Have what?
Felt heard.
Heard.
Oh,
Sounds like it's rubbing it in. I don't like.
yeah.
Yeah,
Let
So,
me
why don't we
make a
just,
stab at it. Anybody who wants to make a suggestion for changes can do so when we have time to think.
Go ahead and post Lynn's phone number on there and he could answer.
yeah, Lynn.
Just for the splinters, maybe also mention, I don't remember who said it, but that the survey showed that it would have a more negative impact, more people than the other way. That it would be.
Yeah, by the way, we have time. Mary,
Yes.
Alice, and me. To get, because the splinters for the board doesn't go out this week. The splinters for the board goes out in the newsletter. After next Sunday.
Okay. Well, that really sort of goes, oh, just never mind. I'll write it up. Y'all can make changes as you want.
Okay, so that was a major issue, and thank you very much. And thank you, Angela, again. Your hand is still up.
Well, I just wanted, because we're wrapping it up and it was probably the shortest COVID discussion in the history of a board meeting. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I also just wanted to ask a question. Should we close the survey now so that the date, because if you're going to say the data is set, like I can literally just tap a button now and close it at the 100.
Turn it off.
Okay, close it up. Okay, and then I'm going to leave, but thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Angela, before you go.
Yeah.
Ken,
Yeah,
I'm requesting as a new item for our next board meeting. I have a draft that I've held on to since August, a resolution of thanks to the COVID task force. And I sent out the little bit of stuff that I had on the draft earlier in one of our discussions, and I would like to put that on as a board item. And I think I'm gonna have a little conversation with Ryan about it to take that a step further. And I just want to say thanks again to the COVID task force. Angela again had to go a little bit above and beyond this time around because I felt out.
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, survey off.
We'll have
and
that
I'm-
on the agenda.
Okay.
And belatedly, AB has been very patient here.